The despised bastard son died in a conspiracy, but was given a second chance. Regression. Now he's absorbing weapons, not to destroy them, but to become them. Blade by blade, memory by memory, he's rewriting what power means. He's been here before, and this time no one lives long enough to betray him twice. Can the most unwanted son become the most unstoppable warrior? Let's find out. The story begins in a deserted northern territory in South Korea. A group of people gathered together in the forest, some of whom hid their faces behind masks. A man approached a guy with 2 mugs of drinks and asked if this was his first hike, right? The guy smiled and said that he had been to portals and dungeons, of course, but never to deserted lands. That's why he wasn't entirely confident in himself. The man laughed and said that it was better to mentally prepare for the worst. This was a land where no man had set foot since the beginning of time, so there were a lot of monsters here. He could be sure that they would meet some ancient monsters. The guy asked if he could tell if their leader was from the famous Lee warrior clan. He had heard that he was the brother of the clan's patriarch. He must be very strong. The man looked away and asked if that's what he was talking about. He was just an illegitimate child. He was so useless that he was expelled from the clan. Next to them sat the 9th illegitimate son of the famous Lee warrior clan, named Cheol. The man said that he was not only talentless, but also completely devoid of ambition. At his age, he had only reached the 7th rank in martial arts. How can you rely on someone like him? One of the masked men approached the leader and said that they should continue on their way. The protagonist looked at him silently, lowered his gaze, and agreed. He started to leave and thought that the Dark Sword Squad was a mercenary squad that directly reported to the patriarch of the Lee clan. In theory, they should protect him, but they seemed to have something else on their minds. He had a very bad feeling about this. He once dreamed of the future, hoping for the best. Even as a child, he realized what a responsibility he had as the heir to the famous warrior clan. When the steel selection ritual was performed on him, the best weapon in their clan's armory was chosen for him. It seemed to him that if he worked hard and tried to earn respect, then one day he would finally be recognized. However, nothing of the sort happened. The doctor pointed to a picture of his ribs and said that he had never seen such meridians. Their low patency excluded the practice of magic. Even martial arts would be difficult for their son. If the young master reached at least the 9th rank, it would be a real miracle. MC thought that when everyone found out about his illness, his success in the steel ritual was written off as pure chance. Despite the grave diagnosis, he made every effort and even proved the doctor wrong. By the age of 25, he had reached the 7th rank. He was in 7th heaven with happiness, although his brothers had reached this rank in childhood. However, this joy did not last long. At 30, he was expelled from the clan. However, if it weren't for his older brother, he would have been carried out of his home straight to the cemetery. Since then, he has been wandering, hiding from his family, and 10 years have passed. Troubled times have come. The uninhabited lands expanded, and monster attacks became commonplace. His father, the bodhisattva of the martial arts world, the patriarch of the famous Lee family, died. The people from the Dark Sword Squad approached him and called his name. He recognized them and asked with a serious expression how they found him. One of them handed him a note and said that they brought him an order. Joel took a deep breath and thought that they did not want to answer questions. He would never be abandoned by this damned family, right? He read the mission order and wondered, the patriarch of Lee Song? Does this mean that the 3rd brother inherited power? What happened to his older brother then? The people from the squad began to leave and said that they were expecting him in an hour. He asked them to wait and asked what happened to his older brother. He realized that they were ignoring his question and he asked, what is the point of this task? He hasn't picked up a hand sword for 10 years. He is only a 7th rank martial artist. A party member turned to him and asked, so he refuses to follow orders? The protagonist looked at them and thought that refusing to follow the patriarch's orders without a good reason would result in the death penalty. He refused and said that he would follow this order. They left immediately, and he, with a very displeased expression on his face, clutched the document in his hand. Currently, he and the rest of the party were walking through the forest. The guy noticed an abandoned estate and asked, where could it have appeared here? Besides, it was quite well preserved. After that, they all took out their swords and slowly entered the estate. They noticed many bones of different creatures and asked loudly, what is this? Is this the skull of an ancient monster? One of the party members noticed something important and ordered the others to act. Suddenly, they attacked one of the guys who went with them. What happened surprised everyone else, and one of them loudly asked what they were doing. The member of the Dark Sword Squad who attacked ran towards them with a wide smile, sword in hand, and said that they themselves knew that they had been sentenced. He should consider it an honor that the great Lee clan was using him for their own purposes. He didn't have time to attack because MC hit him with a sword from behind and with a serious expression asked who ordered his murder. The The squad member survived the blow and said that it was the patriarch. He ordered them to bring them here. He broke the blade of the sword with his own hand and said that they should execute everyone painlessly. His wound began to heal quickly, and he said that, of course, painlessly only if they did not resist. One of the guys ran towards him, swung his sword, and loudly wished him death. However, the squad member pushed Cheol away from himself and with a strong blow of the sword, killed the one who tried to attack him. He turned around and said with a wide smile that it was a pity to look at. He expected something more from him, even if he was only half a member of the Lee family. He delivered a very strong kick and threw the protagonist very far. Having crashed into the wall with his back, he stopped and began to cough up blood loudly. He gritted his teeth and thought that he could not die like this. He began to quickly look around and thought that he needed a sword. He found a sword nearby and thought that this sword could slay a huge monster. Even if it had been lying here for a long time, this would do. He grabbed the sword, took it out, but unexpectedly for him, the blade of the sword turned into dark energy. A squad member approached him from behind and said that even from an illegitimate child he did not expect such uselessness. He hit him with a sword from behind and said that he would honor him with an honorable death only by the right of being from this clan. MC fell to the ground and thought that the heavens were so cruel. Is he really going to die like this? His whole life was a struggle and then an endless escape. He fell and got up so many times. If only he could turn back time. He lost consciousness and heard his father's voice asking, "Is this child Yujung's? What happened to her?" A man stood next to him and said that they found her dead. Cheol looked at him and thought, but his father was dead. This was the patriarch of the famous warrior clan, Lee Cheol. He continued to look at this from the side and wondered, however, why was he so young and the butler Choi too? He stretched out his hands to them, tried to call them, and noticed that he had the hands of a baby. He was very surprised when he realized that these were his hands. He was confused because of this and wondered, what happened? He was killed after all. His father looked at him and said that while he was little, let him bear the name Young. He should assign him a nanny and guards from the Dark Sword Squad. Also let him go through the ritual of steel with the 8th child. Choi asked, that is, he must do it immediately? He is not ready yet. Besides, his 8th daughter is only a few months older. Taishin looked at the child again and said that it does not matter. After that, they both left, leaving the protagonist lying in his crib. He breathed a sigh of relief and thought that he had not seen his father for so long and had become unaccustomed to the pressure of his presence. And yet, what is even happening? This is too real to be a simple memory. Besides, what they talked about really happened. A smile appeared on his face and he thought that he did not want to believe it. But if it really is so, did he really go back to the past? A few months after returning to the past, an important day came in the Lee clan. The ritual of steel. A weapon chooses a representative of the Lee clan, and this shows what talents he is endowed with. His father was chosen by dozens of swords in his time, and he became the best swordsman of his time. His elder brother was chosen swords, scrolls, and staff, and he became a famous battle mage. Now he will undergo this ritual. Nanny Moon Gawa came to him and said that today their young master is so handsome. He is in a new place today and does not even cry. He is already so big. She took him in her arms and said that she is sure that he will have an outstanding result. He has a great future ahead of him. MC looked at her with a smile and thought that she was like a mother to him, but the hatred of one of the brothers led to her dismissal. She was the only person who cared about him and was always on his side. However, he would not allow them to be separated anymore. He hugged her and thought that he would protect her at all costs. Someone came to them and said that everything was ready. Gawa looked at him and asked, "Does that mean it is time for them to go?" At the same time, Choi was standing in the office and told the Lord that everything was ready for the ritual. Taishin looked at him and said that it was good. It was time for them to go. They gathered together with the nannies who were carrying the 2 children and went to the arena, where there were many weapons and crowds of spectators. People looked at Young and said that so this child is an illegitimate son who was brought in secret. In the stands sat the matriarch of the clan Lee Baekwayon, advisor Lee Taehong, the 1st and 3rd heirs Lee Myeongjung and Lee Gunsong. The 1st heir said that he was still very young. He did not remember any of them going through this ritual as infants. He called his brother who was sitting next to him and asked, did he agree with this? The 3rd heir, with an indifferent expression on his face, agreed and said that he did not remember such a thing. He looked down and asked, where did this bastard come from anyway? Taishin raised his hand and said loudly that they were starting the ritual of steel. He looked at the maid and said that she should bring Hua. They brought him the 8th heir, whom he picked up, and sat on a black stone. He took out a small knife, made a small cut on her finger which caused her to start crying. Her blood fell on the stone and magical energy began to emanate from there, which rushed towards one of the many weapons. People saw what sword this energy led to and said that it was a relic sword, the most valuable of the armory, an ivory sword. This is a true masterpiece of blacksmithing, which for many years did not give an answer to any of the heirs. Taishin, with the help of his energy, pulled this sword to himself and caught it with one hand. With the other hand, he raised Hua and said that from now on the ivory sword is given to her. Two elderly servants congratulated the lady on this and said that she gave the warrior another talented child. This is a truly great event. Hua Yun looked down with a small smile and thanked them for these words. Taishin said that the ritual is then carried out with Young. People in the stands began to quietly ask, "Isn't he the one born from another woman? How can you carry out this ritual on your illegitimate children?" The main character was also seated on a stone. A small cut was left on his finger, but he endured the pain and did not cry. Because of this, his father patted him on the head and said that he was proud of him. He waited for what would happen with a slightly worried look and thought that his time had come. In the past, he was chosen by a heavenly ranked sword, a pure echo. A drop of his blood fell on a stone and wondered if everything would be the same as in his past life. Taehong looked at the matriarch and thought that he saw a cold fury in her eyes. Since this was the fruit of his brother's secret intrigue, there was nothing surprising about it. He felt sorry for this child, because a hard fate awaited him. As an illegitimate child, he would have a very hard time in this family. The chief elder Lee Cheol approached him and said that he seemed to have taken a great interest in this illegitimate child. The advisor thought with a displeased look, for example, with this old blinkered prude. They looked at each other with not very pleased faces, and he greeted the chief elder. He thought that he didn't know what was on his mind, but he should be careful. Cheol asked, "Was this child brought by the Lord?" He agreed and said that the Dark Sword Squad found him. He said that he didn't even know what their great lord was thinking. They began to perform a ritual on a child born of unknown origin. He should know that this is an absolutely useless action for illegitimate children. His words angered Taehong, which is why he clenched his hand into a fist and asked what he just said. The elder apologized and said that too many people simply knew the story of how he, also an illegitimate son, was not chosen by any weapon. He hit the floor with his cane and said with an arrogant smile that illegitimate children should know their place. He became even more angry because of this and said loudly that he should not overstep his bounds. He would not tolerate such things. They immediately stopped arguing when they noticed a bright magical glow coming from the arena. Cheol looked at what was happening with a very surprised expression and asked, "How is this even possible?" Taehong said with a happy expression that he could see it with his own eyes, but he still couldn't believe it. The streams of magical energy reached such weapons as the exemplary craftsmanship, the blood spirit spear, the exemplary craftsmanship, the soldered sword, the relic of the divine crossbow of the sensitive dragon. The shocked people couldn't believe it and loudly said that even the weapons that already had owners reacted to it. Myeongjung was surprised when he saw that his sword was also glowing with energy and asked, "How is this even possible?" He turned around and asked, "Isn't this a miracle? Their little brother must have incredible talent." Gunsong looked down with a serious expression and said that it really seemed like it. The people sitting in the stands asked, "What just happened? Illegitimate children can't have talents. However, the ritual of steel is not wrong." Taishin said with a serious expression that they should be more quiet. According to the law of their clan, all the weapons that Young chose are given to him. However, the situation is unusual, so he will listen to their suggestions. Taehong raised his hand and said that he had a suggestion. He noticed this and asked the advisor what he thought about it. He said with a smile that this is the law of the clan, but if they give this child all the weapons, it will destroy the very meaning of the ritual of steel. This ritual should last generation after generation. Maybe they should let him choose his own weapon? After hearing this suggestion, he snapped his fingers and said that it was a good idea. He lifted the various weapons that were on the rack into the air and said that he accepted his advice. He also lifted the protagonist into the air, called his son and said that he should choose any weapon for himself. Taishin sat him down on the floor in front of a multitude of weapons, and he thought that he did not understand why things had gone wrong in the past, but for him it was very good. He began to crawl forward with a serious expression and thought that he could not miss his chance. He crawled past Frock, the Dragon Slayer sword, the sacred spear forged from the bones of the Bodhisattva, Baluka, Valheim, the staff from the branches of the world tree in which the fairies slumber, the sword of the heavenly spheres, forged in the parade of planets. He thought that great examples of weapon art were waiting for him to choose. He stretched out his hand and thought that however he had nothing to worry about. Taishin was surprised because he saw what sword he was reaching for. He thought that it was found by the founder of the clan in unknown lands. A sword covered in dust and mystery, it remained a riddle to their fathers, a black twilight. What is known about this sword does not allow it to be classified as a heavenly sword, but it is kept in a number of such because it was the sword of their founder. In all generations, this sword has never chosen anyone. Did the child really choose this sword just on a whim? He picked up MC in his arms with his ability and asked if this was a sign from heaven. He raised the sword above his head with his free hand and said that he chose the Black Twilight Sword. The ritual was over. Hwayeon looked at this with a serious expression on her face and said that this son who came from nowhere will still drink their blood. If he bothers her, he will leave her no choice but to get rid of him. 9 years later, Young stopped in front of the door, called the nanny, and said that he went to training. Gawa approached him, called the young master, and said that she could see him off. They walked down the street together, and he said that he could walk there himself. She asked why he was going to the first hall in particular. After all, the other training grounds were empty. The first hall was not the most spacious either. He said, with a small smile, that someone was waiting for him. They heard someone scream loudly, and she said that it seemed like someone was on the 7th court. The coach said loudly that she should not grip the sword so tightly, otherwise she would break her fingers. She should do the vertical strike again. The grown-up Hwa obeyed and struck the dummy with the sword. He looked at it and said that it was the 8th. Gawa called him and said, with a slightly worried look, that he should call her big sister. If someone heard this, he would be in trouble. He thought that she was only 5 months older than him. She began to get angry because the coach said loudly, the sword should become a part of her body. She should not swing carelessly. The strike should be neat and precise. Hwa couldn't stand it anymore. Threw the sword on the floor and said loudly that she was tired of it. Why was he always distracting her? What difference did it make how she held the sword? He became worried about this and told the young lady that it was for her own good. She should calm down and try again. He was sure that she could do it. The protagonist pointed his finger at him and asked who this person was who was given such a stupid task to teach his sister. Gawa said that it was Commander Baek Lee-hyun from the Ebony Squad. He asked if he was a commander. However, he was too good a warrior to be forced to teach a 9-year-old girl. She was surprised by what she heard and said that he shouldn't be afraid. Soon he would be given a teacher who would appreciate his talents. She apologized for not being able to raise him the way he deserves. She is not doing a good job of her duties. Young Mrs. Hwa has been eating well since childhood, and he. MC was unhappy with her words and asked, did she start talking like that again? After all, he had told her so many times that he was grateful for everything she had done for him. He turned around and said that, besides, he didn't need a teacher like him. After all, he only came here out of respect for their father. Besides, he already had good teachers, not even one. After some time in Hall Number 1 for training heirs, he thought that this hall was a historical place for the Lee clan. Of course, it was more of a museum than a training hall. However, he didn't just come here for nothing. He approached the warehouse and thought that the most ancient weapon was stored here. He went inside, took this sword in his hand, and said that today he would train with it. He returned to the hall and thought that after returning to the past, changes had happened to him. The most amazing of which was that he could read the memories of weapons. He saw the past where his clan members were standing, and one of them said that they needed to hone their basics. The basics are the same for all skill levels. He started to repeat the movements after them, and thought that this is what memories this sword holds. The age of the weapon, the degree of affection the owner has for it, all this helps him see more clearly what the sword remembers. 7-star sword. Movement 1, Red Wind. He sighed in relief and said that he had finally learned all the movements of the 7-star sword. He thought that over the past 2 years, he had learned the memories of most of the ancient weapons in this hall. His attention was drawn to the fact that someone entered the hall and said that this was excellent. It had been a long time since he had seen such good mastery of the 7-star sword technique. Taehyung looked at him with a wide smile, and Young called him uncle. He thought that he was the clan advisor, holding the 4th rank. Even though he is the patriarch's half-brother, he is the clan's minister of war and is held in high esteem and respect. In both his past and present lives, he is one of the few who genuinely cares for him. He bowed and greeted him. Taehyung laughed, patted his head, and told him that they could dispense with the formalities. He is so proud of him, since he comes here to train every day. He often notices him when he leaves the assembly chamber. It must be very difficult for him to be treated like this by his brothers. However, he hopes that he can overcome it. The protagonist told his uncle that it is okay. He is part of a famous clan anyway. Respect must be earned with the sword. He learned that this is their family motto, so he will earn respect if he becomes stronger. He was surprised by what he heard and wondered why this child was born out of wedlock. He said that, by the way, he will have a naming ceremony soon. Although there is very little time left, he wants to be his teacher. He was confused by this and said that he was grateful to him, but he could not accept his offer. Taehyung was very surprised by what he heard and loudly asked why he said that. Why was he not happy that he wanted to become his teacher? He raised his hands and said that, however, according to the clan laws, he does not have the right to a teacher before he is given a name. He does not want him to get into trouble because of him. He said with a serious expression that, however, his brothers and sisters have long since stopped paying attention to these rules. They are well fed and taught by the best teachers. MC removed his hand from his shoulder with a smile and said that, however, you can't break the rules, even if everyone around you breaks them. As he already said, he wants to win respect with a sword. Taehong was surprised by what he heard and wondered if he was really only 9 years old. His gaze, it was as if he was looking into the eyes of an older brother. He sighed with a small smile and said that it seemed like there was nothing he could do. He patted his head again and said that he was as stubborn as his father. Things were bad. It seemed like there was nothing he could do at all, and that bothered him. However, maybe there was still something he could help with. He was happy to hear that and thought that he had been waiting for him to say that. He scratched his head and said that actually, he wanted to ask him for something. He would like to see what was underneath the secret warehouse. After a while, Taehong arrived at a guarded area where a man with a spear stopped his car. He walked up to the window and said that he had to show his documents and tell him the purpose of his visit. He stated his name and position, handed over the documents, and said that the purpose was to audit the warehouse. With him is the youngest heir of the Lee clan. Let him watch how the adults work. The guard gave him back his documents and said that they could go inside. Young looked out the window with a surprised expression on his face and thought that he should act like he was interested in everything. He asked, "So this is the secret warehouse?" Taehong looked at him through the mirror and asked, "Does he really like it here?" He agreed and said with a happy look that he knew that treasures and the best weapons of their clan were stored here. Thought that he was also looking for something specific here. Legendary swords, relics that are hard to believe exist. If someone is looking for such things, they will be told that it is definitely in the Lee weapons warehouse. They went inside, and he began to look around with a surprised expression on his face. His uncle pressed the elevator button and said that in the basement of the warehouse, there is a weapons storage facility that, for some reason, needed to be isolated. The protagonist said with an excited expression that he had heard that there was a monstrous rank weapon there that devoured its owner. He said with a frightening smile that it was a weapon that you picked up and it devoured the user's heart and body to the bone. He laughed and asked if that scared him. He was indignant because of that and said that he was not scared at all. Taehong said that he didn't have to be afraid. He wasn't allowed there anyway. He would go to the upper floors on business, and for now he could look around. He entered the elevator and agreed with him. The doors closed and they waved their hands at each other. As soon as the door closed, he took a breath with a calm expression and said that it wasn't that easy to act like a naive child. He thought that the basement of a secret weapons warehouse, which is also called a weapons cemetery. Dangerous items of weapon art are isolated there. The whole point of this trip is to find a certain weapon. In its original form, it is a dagger, but if you give it mana, it can take any shape and change weight. Gunsong once found this weapon here. He received the title of Fickle, because that is the essence of this weapon. Because of this title, it was he who became the patriarch, and not the eldest son who was more suitable. He ordered to find it and kill it. That's all he managed to find out. To prevent this from happening again, he must do something. He began to release dark energy from his palm and said that it might not work the first time, but he must find the right option. This time, he will receive the title of Fickle, not Gunsong. After some time, he began to check all the weapons in the warehouse and said that an hour had already passed since he was sorting through the daggers, but he could not find the limitless one. He began to look around with a determined expression on his face and thought that it was definitely somewhere here. He must have missed something. He decided to check another display case and accidentally dropped an old and rusty dagger on the floor. He wanted to pick up that dagger, but suddenly it started emitting a powerful dark energy. He was transported to a place filled with warriors' bones and weapons and asked where he was. MC started looking around and wondered, are these the memories of that dagger? They are not like anything he has seen before. It is so realistic. He heard a loud sound, which made him immediately turn around with a very wary expression on his face. There he saw something scary, which makes his blood run cold. An ancient monster that once came out of a blue portal, which has been absorbing entire civilizations for a long time, an apocalyptic rank monster. His legs started shaking with fear, and he thought, will he kill it? How can he even hope to defeat it? He has to run right now. There was a man standing behind him. His clothes and sword were covered in blood, who walked towards that huge monster. Young was surprised by this and wondered where that man came from. The man jumped very high and swung his sword to attack. He cut that monster with one blow. It was a slashing demon. He looked at what was happening with a shocked expression on his face and said that this couldn't be. He stared at the warrior who defeated such a high-level monster with one blow He turned to him and asked with a serious expression who he was. The protagonist was very surprised by this and wondered if he was able to notice him. The man with a sword in his hand walked towards him and asked why he came here. He started to attack and said that he was doing this out of mercy. He would not feel pain and he would send him back. This scared him very much. But he immediately got out of his memories and dropped it from his hands. He looked at his shaking hands with a frightened expression and wondered what the hell that was. It seems he can still feel that pressure that was almost pinning him to the ground, as if it was all real. He noticed that the rust on the dagger began to disappear. He immediately grabbed it and thought that this was what he was looking for. He cut his finger with this dagger and thought that he would become the commander of 100,000 troops. Because of this, a very bright magical glow began to emanate from the dagger. He made several quick movements with this dagger and said that he finally found the limitless. After some time, he returned to the hall, began to train with the sword, breathing heavily, and said that he failed again. He thought that a week had already passed since he found the limitless. After a trip to the secret armory, he turned it into a ring so that no one would guess. However, still, what happened then? The move that man demonstrated was called the Demon Slash. He demonstrated the move and told him what it was called, but he must have thought that it was too early for him to learn such moves. In addition to his crushing strength, he also demonstrated extraordinary grace. He won't be able to repeat it. However, he doesn't have to rush. In his previous life, he was a disgrace to the family and couldn't even learn the basics of the family's martial craft. This is only one move so far, but this is his first time touching the ancient martial arts. Someday, he will be able to repeat it. He has memorized all of that man's moves exactly. However, what's the point? He is not an adult like that man, but just a 9-year-old boy. Trying to imitate the moves of an adult body will do him no good. He needs to adapt the move to his childish body. There is no need to rush, let everything be natural. He closed his eyes and thought that he needs to handle the sword in a way that is comfortable for his height and weight. He struck the sword very hard and left a small crater at that spot. MC was happy about this and said that it seemed like he had already made progress in the right direction. He thought with a determined expression that now he just needed to get the hang of using mana effectively. He had been trying to do everything the way he had learned in his past life for a long time, but nothing worked, and it was as if he had forgotten something very important. He said that it seemed like he had no choice but to keep trying. He decided to try to do it again, but an unknown girl was watching him with a wide smile. The moment he swung his sword, she ran up to him and grabbed the blade of his sword. She looked at him with a frighteningly serious expression and asked, "Who taught him this technique?" Young asked with a slightly worried look who she was. He noticed her dark hair and yellow eyes and thought that she must be from his clan. The girl was surprised by what she heard and asked if he didn't know her. She laughed with a confused smile and asked, "Really? How would he know her? She doesn't often go out." She extended her hand to him and asked with a friendly smile what his name was. He shook her hand and told her his name, which made her wave it with a happy expression and said that it was such an unusual name. "Her name is Lee Cheol. Nice to meet you." He didn't resist with a puzzled and calm expression and thought that she was his father's younger sister. He remembered that Tae-hong had said earlier that she was a little different from everyone else. His grandfather really didn't like it. The protagonist thought that he remembered his uncle telling him about her in his past life. He lay on the ground after what happened, and she said that he turned out to be quite frail. He looked at her and wondered why his aunt didn't realize how much power she had. She looked at him with a serious expression and a smile and asked, "So how did he know this move?" He asked why she was asking that. She said that she recognized this technique as an ancient martial art. She was really into it, so she was curious. In ancient times, there were giant monsters on Earth. He knew about it, right? She took out a small book, handed it to him, and said that here was also a gift for him. "You should read this." MC started flipping through the pages of the small book and thought that the handwriting was a little difficult for him to decipher, but it seemed to be a mana manipulation technique. Not only that, it was also about martial arts, and a high-level one at that. The rumors about his aunt be just a hoax? Something caught his attention, and he asked what was written here. She walked up to him, pointed her finger, and asked, "Right here?" This was an ancient technique of mana manipulation through energy channels. In the past, only channels were used for this, not meridians. Modern techniques suggest that the center for storing chi energy is located in the heart. However, could he tell her, is it fair to say that ancient techniques are outdated? He looked at her and thought that he hadn't thought about it before. Kyona said with a serious expression that maybe the ancient techniques of managing chi energy were even better. There were very few manuscripts, and she was searching for ancient techniques of strengthening and transformation. Young thought that this was exactly the technique needed for the limitless. He ran away from her and called out, which attracted her attention and caused misunderstanding. He got into a fighting stance and thought that mana was distributed from the heart throughout the body. He must not let it return to the heart. Let the mana remain in the channels. This is what he lacked to understand this person's technique. Now it should work. He delivered an even more powerful blow than before, due to which they were both surprised by what he had just done. Kyonga ran up to him, grabbed his shoulders and asked loudly, in a very surprised voice, "Was that a strengthening technique?" He agreed, and she asked loudly, "How did he do it?" In response, he said that he just did it. That's all. She was unhappy about this and asked loudly if he could explain how exactly he did it, massaged his shoulder after her grip and asked with a worried look why he had to tell her that. She said loudly that he was able to perform this move after reading her notes. It was the fruit of all her research. She calmed down a little and said that she had been searching for a way to learn the strengthening technique for over 10 years, even after she was kicked out. What can she do to make him tell her? The protagonist sighed and said that she had to promise him 3 things. First, she was not allowed to talk about him to anyone without his permission, not even her father and uncle. Kyonga was surprised by this and asked why he made such a condition. He said that he didn't like it when people talked about him behind his back. She nodded in agreement and said that she was familiar with it. He noticed the sadness in her words and said that second, she should not lie to him anymore. They must trust each other, then he won't lie either. She thought a lot about this condition, but still agreed and asked what the last condition was. After that, he told her his last condition. A year passed. Young was distracted from his training by his nanny, who ran out to him with an alarmed look. He wondered what had happened, and she handed him the letter he had been waiting for so long. He was ordered to appear at the naming ceremony in the assembly hall on September 10th at 10 a.m. and was not allowed to bring weapons with him. He was a little confused that this order was signed by the deputy patriarch Lee Myungjung, which meant that his father was not at the estate at the moment. But he did not hear anyone getting ready for an expedition. Meanwhile, his aunt literally flared up with annoyance. She grabbed her head and exclaimed that they were only just beginning to master the techniques, and now more than ever, it was important to her that he was here, and he would be delayed for a long time at the ceremony, so let him not go there. He watched her rage in silence, and thought that it had been a year since they had made a deal, and were researching mana manipulation techniques together. Modern techniques suggest that the center of energy accumulation is the heart, while ancient techniques say that energy accumulation should be done evenly throughout all channels, and they invented a method that takes the best of both techniques. Kyonga says that combining these 2 techniques has been her long-time dream. You can store mana in the heart and in the channels for greater efficiency. Thanks to this technique, he has surpassed his peers who only use the modern method. He was distracted from his thoughts by his aunt's whining, asking him not to go there, but he had to, and this made her even more upset. He told her not to be afraid. This ceremony does not last too long. He will return soon and they will resume work. She immediately perked up, but doubted it because he would have training. To which she answered her with a smile that he would combine training and studying mana techniques. After that, he went to class and sat in the capsule next to the 8th heiress, Lee Hua, a member of the Blood Tiger Squad and part-time their instructor, Jang Wook, told the children that first they needed to withstand the onslaught of magical attacks for half an hour. The lesson began, and he noticed that Young had changed. Watching him withstand the onslaught of magical attacks, he thought that he was sure that the bastard would not withstand this test, because he was not provided with any training. But right now he was reflecting magical attacks using mana control. Unexpectedly for him, Young looked him straight in the eyes, which made him shudder. He realized that this boy was impudent. He decided to compete with the 8th heiress and evaluate his abilities. He wants to be tested on a higher level. However, he forgets that he is just a 10-year-old illegitimate son. He smirked and wondered, how could he be the illegitimate son of a patriarch? But after proving his extraordinary talent, calling him a bastard was not proper. He should reevaluate what he thought of him. He will do his best to teach him well, and not just for the sake of the ceremony. Soon, the lesson ended. MC went outside and stretched and, remembering how magic hit him, thought that this family was too weird. How can they practice magic attacks on children, supposedly to increase their resilience? He remembered how the teacher apologized to him and thought that he did not expect this at all, and his tone changed greatly. He decided to go and rest, but as soon as he passed by a nearby pillar, the 8th heiress appeared in front of him and wanted to hit him, but he defended himself. She called out to him in displeasure and said that they needed to talk. He threw her hand away and asked her what she wanted, and she pointed her finger at him in anger and ordered him to watch his language. She was the legitimate daughter and he was a bastard, and she was also a year older than him. Since he didn't want to get involved with her, he decided to leave, saying that he didn't have time, but this only made her even more angry, and she attacked him with her fists, telling him not to ignore her. Noticing the glow around her hand, he realized that she was going to hit him with mana, and immediately turned around, deciding to teach her a lesson. He stepped back, dodging her fist, then grabbed her by the collar and pulled her towards him, saying that if she wanted to throw tantrums, she should go to her mother for that, and he was busy, so she shouldn't waste his time. He let her go and was about to leave, but she said that it was all because of him. Because of what he did at the ritual, she was constantly compared to him. Why can't you sit quietly and keep a low profile like all the other bastards? It's not fair. Because of this, she can't sleep as much as she wants, eat what she wants, and every day she is taken to these training sessions. He was just born gifted. And she didn't want all this, but her mother did. She realized that she had said too much and immediately shut her mouth, and Young said that it was probably so convenient to blame someone for her mistakes. That's right, he is an illegitimate child, as she says, and he cannot afford such luxury. If she doesn't like getting up early, then she should not sleep at all. If meager food doesn't help her, then she should refuse it altogether. If she hates him so much, then she should do everything to become better than him. He turned away from her and went to his room, telling her that maybe then he would apologize to her. That was the rule of this family. She clenched her fist in anger and called him an arrogant pimple, then shouted that she would tear him apart at the ceremony. She would make him apologize, so he would not forget what he promised her. He only smiled in response and said that maybe that day would come. After that, Hua went to the training hall for the direct heirs. The maid waiting for her outside perked up when she saw her mother, Huayan. She asked her to leave her alone with her daughter, and she went inside, seeing her beating up a target. She asked what she was doing there, and Hua looked down, hesitantly telling her that she was training. Her mother said that she had been told that she had performed worse than some bastard in training, and asked if she hadn't told her that she should crush her opponents. She was disappointed. She should give up the way of a warrior. She didn't have to do this just so that she wouldn't scold her. She was already tired of it herself. The girl pursed her lips and, plucking up her courage, said that she knew. She thought that she was learning under duress, but in fact, she was learning because she wanted to. Huayan crossed her arms in displeasure, and she confidently declared that she would defeat him no matter what, and it wasn't because she told her to. She wanted to, and she would do it. Huayan narrowed her eyes slightly and after a short pause asked, so she was motivated by rivalry with some bastard? Hua didn't know what to say, and her mother, lifting her face by the chin, forced her to look into her eyes and reminded her that she was the legitimate heir of the clan. They were in completely different positions. She had to be above him. This was not up for discussion. And what was she doing? Was she competing with him on equal terms? She gave her a small bottle of deadly poison called Sleepy Wrath, and said that if she could not surpass him, then she should destroy him. This is how it is done in this family. After that, she left, and Young's nanny looked at his 14-week results and was very surprised. Seeing her reaction, he happily asked, "Is she no longer worried about him?" She immediately hugged him and said with a smile that he achieved everything himself. He did so well. He asked her not to say that. She helped him a lot. Suddenly, there was a noise outside, and they exchanged glances, after which Gyeongha ran into the room and told her nephew that it was time for them to train. He told her with a displeased look that he had just come from there, but she happily stated that training with mana techniques helps to remove fatigue. He told her that he had never heard of such a thing, and she, looking away, involuntarily agreed with him. Realizing that she would not leave him alone so easily, he sighed heavily and agreed to train. He still wanted to show her something. At first, she did not understand what he was talking about, but a second later her face immediately changed and she exclaimed in shock, "Did he get the first star?" His satisfied smile answered her question. As a rule, the study of mana techniques is divided into 3 stages. The stage of the iron body, in which a person strengthens his physical form, the stage of qigong, in which mana is transformed, and the stage of abilities, when the level of mastery of mana techniques allows one to demonstrate what is inaccessible to an ordinary person. But the method developed by Gyeongha is different. Even at the first stage, one can achieve superpowers. So she divides the stages of studying mana techniques into stars. Having learned about what her nephew has achieved, Nam praised him and asked how he mastered the direction of energy through the channels so quickly. She thought that they still had a year to work on it. Remembering her training, he shuddered and said that he learned it from her. He tried to maintain control over his heart and channels at the same time, which almost ruined his balance. It turned out to be unnecessary. Mana is like water. It has a natural fluidity. He realized that their bodies are designed as a vessel for mana. Because of his words, she thoughtfully looked at her hand, then clenched it into a fist and said with a smile that she thought she could do it too. Maybe not as fast as him, but she could still do it. He sighed with a smile, glad that she understood everything, but suddenly she squeezed him in her arms and thanked him. Only she hugged him so tightly that she almost broke his ribs and strangled him, and as soon as she let go, he immediately fell to the floor. His aunt did not pay attention to this at all and said that now they will move on to achieving 2 stars. He got 1 star. He understands that this is not the same as going through the iron body stage. He got up and agreed with her, and then she asked what he does best. He thought for a second and was about to say something about fencing, but she interrupted him and said that she didn't think so. He was slightly surprised by this and reminded her that she hadn't seen him training in fencing yet, but it turns out she had already seen everything. When she was especially bored, she would look in on him. She believes that he has an ability that is much more outstanding than swordsmanship. She thought about how she could explain everything to him clearly and said that mana techniques are his strong point. He was very surprised, and she noted that he has an incredible talent for mana techniques. Everything else doesn't compare. She has never managed to teach anyone mana techniques. They didn't succeed, and they just quit training. Because of her words, he thought about it. But in his past life, they laughed at him, that he is an absolute zero in this. She pulled him out of his thoughts by poking her finger into his forehead and said that she didn't think it would be too hard for him to earn a 2nd star. If he could do that, the naming ceremony would be a piece of cake for him. She got very happy and said that she would be teaching him real techniques from now on, so he should pay attention. He agreed with her, and then finally got up from the floor and asked what the box next to her was. She looked down at it and put her hand on it with a smile, and then MC's cheek was suddenly pierced by something, and it pierced the wall behind him, causing cracks. It turned out that his aunt had thrown one of the metal cannonballs that filled the box at him. She told him that he should learn to control mana while moving. Doing it while standing was useless. She took a few cannonballs and, looking at him with a creepy smile, suggested that he start training quickly, which he really didn't want to do. Soon after, he went with Hua to train with the leader of the Blood Tiger troop, Lee Cheol, to learn the martial arts of the Honorable Lee Clan from him. He pointed to a rack of weapons behind him and told them to choose one of them and go to him. He gives them 1 minute to do so. The children immediately rushed to the rack of weapons, and while they were choosing, Hua looked at MC strangely, which began to irritate him. He asked why she was looking at him like that, and if she wanted to say something, and she excitedly told him that she did not want to say anything. After that, she asked if he would choose a sword, and he, picking up several types of weapons at once, told her that this was not the case. He walked towards the teacher with a spear and swords in his hands, leaving her confused, and the man looked at his choice and asked what it meant. He told them to choose the weapon that they used the most. Young told him that this was the weapon he used, and Zhongquan looked at him, and after a short pause said that he thought he was smart, but he was a fool. He took out a spear from behind his back and told them to remember everything he said. He told them that he would teach them the clan's martial art, but it would not be stances and techniques. The clan has secret knowledge of techniques called enlightened ones. They already know the basics, so it's time to teach them the secret techniques. They have a 6th sense hidden in their blood, and they need to awaken it, and he will do it. Seeing him heading towards them with a weapon in his hands, they prepared for a fight, and he, getting into a fighting stance, said that they better awaken this 6th sense as soon as possible. Hua got nervous, not understanding what he was going to do, and MC told her to get ready if she didn't want him to knock the wind out of her with one blow. But as soon as he said those words, the teacher was already next to him, and his eye barely managed to follow him. But even so, he couldn't react in time and received a punch that threw him into the air. Gritting his teeth, he looked at the teacher and he asked with a smirk, did he still manage to block? Landing, Young wondered if he would have to go through this again. In his past life, he couldn't stand this training, but this time it would be different. Gaining confidence, he pushed off the ground and rushed towards his opponent, pointing the tip of his sword at him. But Zhongquan met him with a punch to the face. Meanwhile, Hua decided to get behind him, but her loud roar gave her away and he turned around, hitting her. MC, meanwhile, was thrown aside. It's been a month since they started training with Zhongquan. Young got hit again and, smiling, wiped the sweat from his face, thought that this is training, after which they have fractures and internal injuries. This is not what should happen to a 10-year-old child, but he is not going to whine. He is starting to master his teachings. With a confident look, he got to his feet and continued training. Time passed, from many blows while lost consciousness, but quickly came to her senses. She was surprised that she fell unconscious again, and MC said that this was already the 22nd time, and he lost consciousness only 16 times. She began to reproach herself for being inattentive, and their teacher, watching them, thought that the 8th heiress had high endurance. He sometimes used force even beyond measure, but she never received serious injury. As for the illegitimate son, he felt something special in him from the first day. At first he took him for a fool because he brought several types of weapons at once, but as it turned out, he wields them equally well. A month passed, and it seemed that he was finally starting to understand something. This thought, he smirked, after which he decided to continue the lesson and told them to take their starting position. Some time passed after the fight began. The children were already pretty tired, and then Young decided to fight the teacher, not just with strength, but with his mind. He called out to Hua, and when she looked at him displeased, he asked her to stop him with a block on his signal. But why would she do that? He did not really count on her help and said that he just had an idea to fight him back at least once, which is why she still decided to help him and asked if he was sure about it. He confirmed this, and then she rushed into battle, shouting that he owed her. He ran after her, thinking that at his level he had no chance to defeat him. But there were two of them. At least he could take advantage of that. The man prepared for battle and twirled the spear in his hands, asking, "Are they working as a team? That's not a bad idea. But only if they can do anything." He dodged Young's attack and he immediately countered, which pleased the teacher greatly. He ran towards the boy and they both swung their spears, and at one point, MC gave Hua the signal. She pounced on the teacher from above with a loud scream, while Young took advantage of the fact that he was distracted by her and stepped back. Watching their fight, he threw the spear away and took the sword, thinking that he could only give him one way to fight back. The strongest attack that Boundless gave him, the slicing demon. Enveloping the sword in mana, he pushed off the floor so hard that it left cracks and rushed towards his opponent. Junquan had dealt with Hua at that moment, but when he noticed Young rushing towards him, he was quite surprised. He had already prepared to reflect his sword, but he didn't even expect that he would let go of it and pounce on him with his fists. Confident that this method would work, MC delivered a powerful blow. Looking up at the teacher, he laughed and asked, did he manage to reflect it after all? Still, he couldn't hit him. He stopped his fist with his hand. Suddenly, blood spurted out of Young's mouth. He was thrown back and hit his back against the wall and coughed in pain. While he was trying to come to his senses, the teacher approached him and, shaking the dust off his hands, said with a smile that it took him 37 days. He finally awakened his sixth sense. However, he still had a lot to learn. After saying this, he stepped aside, letting Hua pass by as she was about to hit him, and she crashed into the wall next to MC. Satisfied with the results of his training, the man decided to end today's lesson and stepped aside, amidst the cries of the disgruntled girl who felt cheated by Young. Junquan looked at the huge bruise left on his palm after the punch and thought that he had used mana, but it still broke through his block. He has a rule not to use mana, but this time he had to, even if only a little. He's a good boy. He understands what battle tactics are. His older brothers should be wary of him. Time passed. On the 47th day, Hua also achieved the goal of awakening the sixth sense, and so Zhongquan finished working with them. MC had time to rest and comprehend the knowledge he had gained, and then his older brother, Lee Myungjung, came to him. He appeared on his doorstep late at night with a smile on his face. He is the first son of Lee Cheol. He received the title of Double Star, reached the second rank in both martial arts and magic. People respected and feared him, but for him, he was the only beloved brother. They decided to drink tea, and Myungjung apologized to Young for not being able to pay attention to him, since he was very busy, but it did not upset him. He smiled and asked if he was seeing him for the first time. But at the same time, he immediately recognized who he was. Then MC confirmed it with a smile and said that he is only his stepbrother. But he can't not know what his older brother looks like. The man shuddered at his words and asked him with an upset look not to talk about himself like that. For him, he is the same brother as everyone else. He felt uneasy and thought that this boy hasn't even gone through the naming ceremony yet, and he is already so strict with himself. Young apologized to him, and he sighed, saying that he doesn't need to do that, and let him talk to him informally. They are brothers after all. He was very happy about this, and thought that he has always been just as kind and good. It turns out that Myungjung brought him a gift in honor of their first meeting, and reached under his clothes with his hand, saying that he bought it in France when he was studying at the Eiffel College of Magic. He thinks that it will be more useful to him than to him. He gave his brother a miracle medicine called the Nectar of the Gods, and he was very happy, because it is the most expensive healing potion. The magicians of France are able to produce it only half a liter per year. He was very grateful to him because it costs a lot of money, and from his gratitude, Myungjung was very surprised and said that he is so different from others. All their brothers and sisters see him only as a rival. He is not used to this, but he is glad that he is not like them. But he was wrong, and MC told him so directly. He can't say that he does not see him as a rival. After all, he realizes that they are the heirs of the Lee clan and can't help but compete. So let him not think that he is just his cute brother. Who knows? Maybe he will grow up and become his strongest rival. He hopes that they will have a fair competition with him. This made his brother laugh out loud and pat him on the head, telling him that he would look forward to the day he would become his strongest rival. Young was glad that he had finally met an older brother who truly cared about him, and vowed that this time he would protect him from them. A few days later, it was time for the second stage of the naming ceremony of the venerable Lee clan. MC and Hua traveled to the ceremony site by water, to the Red and Blue Island. On this island, the color of the soil changes depending on the concentration of mana in the air. Since ancient times, this is where the clan's ceremonies were held. Their escort explained to them what awaited them during this stage of the ceremony. They must survive together on this island for 3 weeks. This will prove their resilience. He pointed to the wristwatches and tokens. These items will help them keep track of their whereabouts, so let them not take them off. After the 3 weeks are up, they will be taken away from here. Once they had put on the tracking devices, they were dropped off on the island and wished good luck. Looking at the rainforest in front of them, Hua wanted to tell Young something, and he asked, "Has she finally made up her mind?" Ever since they were taught together, he felt like she always wanted to tell him something. Realizing that he had already guessed it, she became very embarrassed, and he looked at her, as if to say, with his appearance, that it was hard not to notice. He decided to give her a chance to speak, and she, gathering her resolve, took off her badge and watch and looked at him with a confident look. He immediately realized that she wanted him to do the same, so he asked what she wanted to say. She showed him a vial of poison, which surprised him greatly, and said that it works on children under 15. If you leave the vial open for 5 minutes, the poison will completely evaporate. As far as she knows, it deprives a person of the ability to use mana for a long time. His face darkened, and he asked who gave it to her, and she, holding the bottle higher, said that she would not tell him about it. After that, she suddenly smashed it on a rock, thus getting rid of all evidence, and said that she would defeat him in this competition, and without any tricks, she would not poison him, so let him take this competition seriously. He looked at her in shock, and after a short pause, smiling, said that even if she had not told him this, he would still take it seriously. She really liked his words, after which they put the tracking devices on you again, and, taking the bags, headed towards the forest. Hua said that when he got comfortable, he should definitely go to the center of the island. They say it is very dangerous there. He told her that he already knew about it. Is she worried about him? She immediately became indignant and exclaimed that she was only worried about him dying before she could settle the score with him. She was suddenly silenced by a loud sound from the sky, and they immediately looked up. Once everything was quiet, they looked towards the forest, and Hua told him not to die on the way. And then she set off. Watching her run along the edge of the water, he confidently flexed his fists and declared that he was not going to run along the shore. Instead, he was going to head into the heart of the island. Some time had passed since then. Hua had already managed to kill several monsters, and the clan members were watching her from the observation room. Some of them noted that the 8th was doing well. As expected, she had already completed the first task, to hunt. She had killed quite a lot of creatures, and this was her first real fight. The elder stroked his beard and said that it was natural. Let them remember who awakened her 6th sense. She was destined for success. 47 days, right? Junquan, who was standing nearby, said that she was not like this at the beginning of her training. He expected that he would achieve her enlightenment in at least 2 months. Glanced at the screen and thought that she was a gifted girl, but there was nothing unusual about her. However, someone motivated her to achieve her goal much earlier, and that someone was the 9th heir, Lee Young. The elder took notice of him. Noticing that he was wandering in the forest, he wondered what he was doing, and Junquan assumed that he was looking for a safe place to spend the night. After that, a dissatisfied hubbub immediately arose in the room. They called him a coward, a rat who seeks comfort, and did not see him as the heir of the venerable Lee clan. This did not please his older brother. He ordered them to be quiet and said that this was a dangerous environment, and finding a safe place in it was a far-sighted decision. So he did not deserve blame. The clan members only became nervous because of his reproach, and one of them hastened to justify himself by saying that their expectations were inflated due to the success of the 8th heiress. The elder said that in the venerable Lee clan, mediocrity is a grave sin, after which he stroked his beard with a smile and asked, "Don't they think so? The heirs of a respected clan have no right to be like mere mortals." Myungjung clenched his hand into a fist and thought that they were mocking the child for who he was born from. How low their family had fallen. Or maybe their family had not fallen to the very bottom, but had always been like this. He looked up at the screen with a worried look and wondered what he was planning. He was walking straight to the center of the island. He glanced sideways at Taehong and saw him nervously biting his nails, realizing he wasn't the only one thinking about it. But what was he planning anyway? Meanwhile, MC found a small cave he could use as a hideout. First, he lit some medicinal herbs, covered the entrance with leaves, and went inside. The clan members noticed that he was hiding well, and the elder's face suddenly became surprised after a second. When he saw Young taking off his bracelet with a token, putting it on the ground and covering it with leaves, he got really angry, and then the image disappeared and the room went silent, which was quickly dispelled by Jungkwan's chuckle. He couldn't help but laugh loudly, noting that he was as unpredictable as always, and Myeongjung and Taehong grabbed their heads. He did this so that they wouldn't see what he was going to do now. Since he could now get his hands on Boundless without any unnecessary witnesses, he set to work. Now that he was not being watched, he could do whatever he wanted. Grabbing the dagger, he set to work, and soon his face was distorted with disgust, looking at the stinking mess in the boiling cauldron. He thought that it looked like it would be ready soon. What a disgusting thing it was. Who would have thought that this was tea made from manna leaves? Biting his disgust, he stirred it and thought that in his past life, he did not have gold even for the simplest elixir. It was good that he learned something from his herbalist aunt. She told him that there was a huge abundance of manna plants on this island, and therefore advised him to definitely use this opportunity to increase his energy potential. And now he would have to drink this tea for the sake of manna. He brought the stinking liquid to his face and decided to try it, and then his loud cry was heard, which scared the birds near the shelter and hurried to fly away. Throwing the empty cauldron to the ground, he fell exhausted to the floor and thought that this was just hellish nastiness. Thus began his 3-week battle for survival. On the 18th day of the ceremony, the deputy captain of the Azure Sword Troop, Yu Janghon, who reported directly to him, arrived in Myeongjung's office, and from his face he realized that he brought bad news. He informed him that a large group of people had crossed the northern border of the Republic of Korea. He expected them to start causing trouble in the settlements, but so far, they were not taking any action. The problem was that the Lee clan's mana stone mines were only 2 days' walk away. Myeongjung thought about it and immediately realized that they were wanderers. They usually terrorized remote, unguarded settlements. He said that these hyenas would never set foot on the clan's land without a specific plan. His subordinate said that the appearance of the wanderers could be deceiving. There must be some kind of power behind them. Myeongjung tapped his finger on the table in confusion and said that he had been informed that the Kowloon faction was gathering forces in the northern borderlands. Kowloon, the 9 Dragons, was a large faction that dominated the central plain. They often provoked the Lee clan by invading their lands. It seemed that information had leaked out that their father was away from the manor, so there was no better time to attack than now. He asked if their scouts knew about this yet. His subordinate told him that since he had ordered them to closely monitor the situation, they knew about it before the scouts. Myeongjung stood up from his seat and ordered him to share the information with them and work together to find out more, then walked over to the window and said that he had a feeling that this was not just a bandit raid. He looked up at the sky and hoped that he was simply mistaken. Meanwhile, somewhere on the island, a magic circle appeared. It lit up and a rift appeared, from which a suspicious man came out. He was here to kill the bastard, and he was given 2 nights to do so. Soon, in the middle of the day, Young met a dragon-like monster of the 7th rank, Draco. Slowly approaching him, it growled, emitting steam from its nostrils, and the already battered MC caught his breath. Draco's neck swelled and began to glow from the inside, and then it spewed a powerful stream of flame from its mouth, which was directed at Young. Despite this, he confidently stood in place and managed to dodge at the very last moment, and then ran towards the monster. Jumping high, he raised his sword over his head and with a loud cry pounced on Draco, striking with the help of the technique of cutting demon. The blade pierced the monster's head and it fell to the ground, dead, bleeding blue. Catching his breath, MC noted that Draco was indeed a strong creature. If he had encountered it in the first days after arriving on the island, it would have killed him with 1 blow. For 19 days, he had been looking for Draco's lair in the very center of the red-blue island, but staying here for too long was a waste of time. Putting the sword in its sheath, he looked around. He had come here for a reason. He was about to go further, but froze in place, hearing suspicious sounds and thought, is it them again? He immediately crouched down and hid in the bushes, and soon monsters of the 8th rank, reptilians, emerged from the forest. He knew they would come. Something strange had been happening since yesterday. He constantly came across reptilians, although they usually live closer to the coastline, and when he tried to engage them in battle, they simply ran away. Reptilians do not have developed intelligence, which means that in this case someone is controlling them. He decided to check if they would escape this time, and suddenly jumped out of the bushes, scaring the monsters. As he thought, they started to run. He caught up with them and quickly cut off the heads of 2 of them but let the 3rd one go. Once he could write it all off as an accident, but now he can't, so he decided to follow the escaped reptilian. Sometime later, the monster came to its owner, who was sitting in the middle of the forest and spreading his influence over the monsters. The reptilian appeared in the bushes behind him and knelt before him, and he said that the offspring of the Lee clan are real monsters. How many monsters has this boy killed alone? Well, what can you do? He can handle it. He's just a child. He's so inexperienced that he's walking into an obvious trap himself. It turns out that this man is a monster tamer. His name is Nishiyama Shogo. He smiled and said that he has a way to prevent failure, but he doubts he will have to resort to it. Meanwhile, Young, sitting on a tree branch nearby, was convinced of his guess. He knew that this was a trap. He has the ability to subdue monsters. Apparently he is a tamer. But how could an outsider get to the Red and Blue Island? There are some ways, teleportation for example. But this is possible if someone has previously installed a magic circle here. So, someone from the Lee clan did it. This thought made him grin and wondered if he should report this and wait for reinforcements. But by the time they sail here, it will be too late, and any evidence leading to the customer will be unavailable to him. So he took off the tracking device and hid it in his pocket and decided to deal with this man himself. He used a stealth technique to make himself invisible and jumped down from the tree with the thought that he should quickly deal with him. As soon as he landed, he rushed towards the monster tamer and swung his sword, but suddenly the artifact in the man's hands activated and the bird screamed loudly, raising the alarm. The tamer immediately turned around, not understanding where this boy came from so suddenly, and MC looked at him with annoyance and thought, "Is this really an artifact that senses danger?" He struck, but the man parried it and increased the distance between them. And when Young removed the stealth technique, he said that the illegitimate son of the Lee clan is much stronger than he thought. MC responded by telling him that he is just weak, which angered the man, and he set monsters at him. The reptilians rushed to attack, and at this time he squeezed his weapon tighter and concentrated on performing the technique of the Sword of Seven Stars, the third move, Deep Blue. Making a confident dash, he dealt with 3 monsters at once, but suddenly something fettered him. Many chains enveloped his body and sword, forcing him to freeze in place, and the monster tamer laughed triumphantly, saying that he was caught. This is a circle of supreme magic. It blocks the heart center of mana. Without mana, he is just a powerless boy, so he will die here. Young quickly looked around and watching his opponent run away, leaving him to his monsters, thought, did he block his mana? Then the mana channels will help him. Mana began to quickly spread throughout his body, filling him with strength, and he broke free from the chains and rushed after the man, not paying attention to the monsters. Catching up with him, he jumped up, ending up above him, and then landed, thus blocking his path. After that, he pointed his sword at him with a smile and asked, "He won't run away, will he?" The tamer became nervous and wondered how he escaped from the circle, but MC preferred not to tell him about it and said that he had already reported him to his relatives, so let him surrender. But his opponent was not going to give up so easily. He laughed nervously and exclaimed that he would destroy him and get his freedom. He did not understand at all what he was talking about and did not notice how someone's huge shadow rose above him. Unexpectedly for him, something big hit him and threw him to the side. He hit his back against a tree trunk at high speed and blood spurted from his mouth, and then he fell to the ground. A huge monster began to approach him and he looked up at it, thinking in horror, is this the guardian of the island, the mountain turtle? This is a third-rank scary monster. Could a third-rate tamer really subdue it? The man looked at him nervously and noticed that he was quite smart. He had not completely subdued the turtle's will. But with a simple order to kill him, it would definitely cope. So he better not resist and accept his fate. He took out some paper talismans from his pocket and scattered them, and then disappeared, dissolving into the haze. Young decided to pull himself together. He needed to calm down and think. He didn't have the turtle under his complete control, which meant all he needed was to kill it. He took out a small elixir pill from his pocket, which he made for an emergency, but he never thought he would have to use it so soon. This elixir gives a great boost of strength, but the side effects, it too dangerous. He threw the pill into his mouth and his mana immediately increased. But he had something else in reserve. He summoned his weapon and remembered that his aunt taught him a technique in case his life was in danger. His eyes suddenly opened, and the mana around him began to tremble. It was the technique of denying the heavens. He dashed towards the turtle and launched a sweeping blow, then increased the distance between them and realized that his opponent was not hurt in any way, but at least he was able to stop it. This is what he would kill it with. He looked up at the turtle and heard it roar loudly, realizing that this was the most dangerous move it had. A blood-curdling roar. This move immobilized him with waves of mana, which made him nervous, but the dark energy in his chest began to thicken and covered him with a protective layer. Feeling that his energy resisted the terrifying roar, he rushed to the attack with his sword at the ready and used the first move, Slashing Demon. He struck the turtle right under the jaw, and in response, it sent a powerful stream of mana at him. which, reaching the sky, cut through the clouds. This attack caused blood to gush out of MC's mouth. He fell to one knee with almost no strength and thought that he didn't have time for this. He would lose his strength for a long time due to the mana increaser and the heavenly denial technique. Since he only had 10 seconds left, he hurried to find the monster tamer and ran into the forest, counting down in his mind. Noticing something, he opened his eyes wider. There was a thread on the ground that led straight to the tamer. 3 seconds left. He saw his back and he turned around, indignant at how quickly he found him. 1 second left. He pounced on him and his blade approached his neck, but he was afraid that he might not reach. If only he had longer arms. The sword fell to the floor and MC clutched his chest and thought that he should take care of himself. If he faints now, it's the end. Aunt Gyeonga said to drink this right after using a dangerous technique. He took out a glass jar and thought how good it was that he remembered to take the nectar with him. Before more monsters come, he needs to deal with the killer. Suddenly he plunged into darkness, and when he opened his eyes, he wondered where he was. Everything around was so white. Tamer, what happened? Cheol clenched his fist and thought that his whole body was being torn apart. A loud voice rang out, "Is this the end? This creature is too dangerous. How did it end up in the boy's body?" She hoped that he wouldn't wake up. It would be better that way. Some huge piece of flesh fell next to MC, and the voice ordered him to eat. Cheol wondered, is this a purple honeycomb rather than a purple twilight stone? The voice said that this is not for him. This is the beginning of a new era. Let him grow, child, so that this era does not swallow him up. After a while, MC opened his eyes and saw Li Hua in front of him, after which he asked, "Hua?" She asked again with displeasure, what kind of Hua is she to him? For him, she is an older sister. Oh well, she will write it off to his condition. How is he feeling? MC thought that, despite the fact that not a single bone and muscle was left undamaged, his mana accumulation potential had increased many times over. Did he really eat the purple twilight stone? He said that several mana channels were torn, minor damage to internal organs, cracks in each bone and muscle tears. It's just a trifle. Hua screamed in fear. What? It's a trifle for him? Cheol looked at her and thought that she was supposed to get the purple twilight stone. This miraculous elixir increases physical strength, mana potential, and also gives immunity to poisons and curses. This is exactly why he sailed to the Red and Blue Island, but he somehow feels ashamed. MC stood up and asked her to better tell how she ended up here. Suddenly, a loud scream was heard. Guys? Hua asked. Big brother? Myungjung ran up to MC and asked, is he injured? He brought him a mana potion. He will fix him now. Cheol thanked his brother and said that he does not need mana now, but for his sake he will drink. Myungjung looked at him carefully and then asked, Hua, can she please leave them? She nodded her head and answered, okay, she understands everything. Myungjung said, if he died, he would spend his whole life to wipe out those who did this from the face of the earth, no matter how powerful they were. Cheol laughed and thanked him. Myungjung frowned and said, what he did was unbelievable even by the Lee Clan's standards. He is a true warrior, but as his brother, he doesn't approve of it. It was crazy. MC replied a little sheepishly that he didn't know if he knew, he would have waited for him. Myungjung exhaled and said, well, at least sometimes he can tell the difference between what he can do and what he can't. Cheol turned to his brother and said that he defeated the tamer, so he has the right to know who he is and all the other information. Myungjung grabbed his head and said he knew he would say that. This tamer is a former 5th rank exorcist from Japan. He was a member of the Onmyoryo order. He was excommunicated for practicing forbidden magic. Whoever hired him must have come to the island, waited until the Turtle Mountain fell asleep, and drew a circle of dark magic. The customer wanted to make it look like he was killed by the mountain turtle. MC asked if he had figured out who the customer was yet. Myungjung replied that the tamer was on his last legs, so it would be difficult to get any information out of him. Cheol realized that the end goal was not him, but his brother. Myungjung frowned and asked why he thought so. MC replied that it would be said of him that he had overlooked a traitor in the clan and had not taken action in time. It would greatly damage his reputation. Myungjung sighed and said that he was right. He would not try to convince him that everything was fine, and it was not. Cheol asked, brother, what should we do about it now? Myungjung patted him on the head and said, it's okay. A few scratches on his reputation won't hurt him much, but he can't leave the estate for long. He must return. MC grabbed his hand and offered to make a deal with his older brother. He will testify that he knew from the beginning who the traitor was and wanted to expose him. Like, he acted on his orders. He thought that this way, they will create the impression that he knew something that even the intelligence service did not notice. Myungjung asked, but wouldn't it be for his own good to tell the truth? Cheol replied that when they find out that he did something unbelievable, they will hate him even more and pay attention to him. Myungjung thought, so that's the deal. He said that the deal is an equal exchange. What does he want? MC happily asked to allow him access to the library. 3 days will be enough. Myungjung shook his hand and said, "What a scoundrel." "Well, okay, thanks." Cheol replied, "You're welcome. It's a deal after all." Myungjung asked if he was right in thinking that he would have gotten out of this situation without him. MC replied, "Well." At that moment, Myungjung reached into his inside pocket and said that he was getting a call from the Jungom department. Apparently, he had to go. He swung and threw the blade at MC, after which he said that he would pretend that he hadn't seen the sword. Cheol smiled and said, "He's a dangerous opponent, bro." After a while, Hwa came back and asked, "Well, how was their conversation?" Cheol was sitting on the ground and putting on his sweater. He replied that it was fine. Hwa asked a question. "Well, which test room will he go to?" 3 weeks have already passed, so the room should be open by now. MC asked, "Which one will she go to?" Hwa shouted in irritation that she asked first. Cheol said, "If she wants him to answer, let her answer first." Hwa asked smugly, "Well, what did he think?" "She'll go to the hardest one, the obsession room." And he, MC, replied that he'll go to the internal struggle room. Hwa asked, "What? Is there such a thing? Is this really one of those by the shore?" MC replied, "Yes, that's right." Hwa said that he disappointed her. It seems that she overestimated him. He wants to go further away from the center of the island? Well, then there's nothing to talk about with him. She thought about it. She thought he was her equal. However, no. She thought he was better than her. MC turned around and thought, so she thinks that he chose an easier test. Because there is an opinion that the difficulty of the tests is determined by the location of the room. We'll let her think what she wants. They went their separate ways, and after a while, Cheol looked around and thought, he doesn't remember where exactly, but somewhere around here. In his past life, he accidentally found a cave here. Here he will undergo the second test of the naming ceremony, the room of internal struggle. After a while, he lit a torch and illuminated the wall. He thought that at first glance, it was just a wall. But this is a deceptive impression. MC took out his sword and started swinging it, breaking rocks. He saw iron doors in front of him and thought, this is it. He cut his palm and squeezed it tightly, after which his hand was covered with blue mana. Cheol waved his hand and left drops of blood on the door. It opened and MC went inside, seeing an altar with a sword in front of him. He walked up to the bowl and squeezed his palm even harder, draining the blood. Cheol said, "A warrior of the Lee clan has come to undergo the tests of the ancestors." He asked for permission. After these words, everything around glowed with blue energy. The room of internal struggle offers a test that sounds very simple, but in practice is very difficult. You need to defeat yourself in battle. MC thought that there can be as many attempts as you like. He will not be able to leave this room until he wins. Even if he gives up, it will not help. His clone appeared in front of him, and Cheol swung his sword and decided to start. The clone quickly approached him and stabbed him in the neck. It was so fast that MC didn't even have time to understand what happened. After a while, he woke up, holding his neck. He thought in fear, he just chopped off his head. I see, it's illusion magic. It's impossible to die for real in the testing room. Everything feels so realistic here. Another person in his place would have gone crazy by now. But there is something more important. Cheol looked at his clone and thought, can he really do this? The testing room has full access to his abilities and uses them with maximum efficiency, which means he doesn't even know what he is capable of. Otherwise, he would have reflected this attack with illusion magic. He gripped the hilt of the sword with both hands and said, okay, one more time. However, on the third try, he killed him with a blow to the stomach. Fifth try, he finally blocked the blow with the sword, but it broke his neck. 10th try, instant death. 13th try, 18th try, 20th try, 23rd try. All of them were unsuccessful. After a while, MC fought off the attack and jumped back, holding on with his hand. He tried to catch his breath and thought that this was the 75th or 80th attempt. He doesn't know. It seems that now he understands. He can learn everything. His greatest strength is freedom of choice, complete unpredictability, unlimited ability to adapt. Cheol grabbed the axe with his hands and pulled it towards himself, smirking. He thought that this time, he rushed towards his clone and struck, but was blocked. MC thought that with every fight, with every clash with their own strength, their movements are synchronized. The clone jumped to the side and then grabbed the sword and headed towards MC. He stabbed him with the sword, but did not strike. Cheol called him a fool, and then swung the sword and said that he missed the strike on purpose. He used the slash of the slashing demon and cut the clone's body. MC thought that upon passing the test, a member of the Lee family is granted an ability hidden in the blood. In his past life, he received the most ordinary ability. This is an enhancement. His body was covered with mixed energy, and he thought that this time. Cheol asked in surprise, what kind of ability is this? At this moment, people gathered near the door. Taehong sighed and said dissatisfiedly, what a small splinter. He thought he would be out of here today. How many more incidents is he going to cause at this ceremony? Suddenly he was informed that the mana density was fluctuating. The doors are opening. The doors opened and Cheol came out onto the street, barely standing. Taehong managed to grab him and screamed, "What's wrong with him? Let him hold on." MC spoke heavily. Taehong asked, "What?" MC said with dry lips, "Water and food." He passed out and Taehong said, slightly irritated, him. He is an irresponsible idiot." The scream was so loud that it echoed throughout the forest, scaring the birds. After a while, Gahwa screamed with tears in her eyes, "Young master." She hugged him and asked, "Does he even know how worried she was about him?" Monster Tamer, Turtle Mountain, and then the forgotten ancestral testing room. MC smiled and replied, "Nanny, he feels disgusting. He hasn't been home for almost a month." Gawa grabbed his face and said, she wanted to scold him hard, but she is glad that he came back, young master. He smiled and thanked her. Gawa wiped her tears and said that she warmed up some water for his bath, and while he was washing, she would prepare him a meal. MC asked, "Where is Auntie?" Gawa stopped and then cleared her throat and replied, "Young master, something happened." He turned around and asked, "What?" After a while, Gyeonga smiled and asked, "Cute nephew, is he back yet?" MC laughed and asked, "Did she think he wouldn't come back?" Gyeonga was sitting behind bars and apologizing, but she is glad that he came back safe and sound. She asked him to better tell her, how did he increase his mana energy potential so much? He hasn't even learned what he had before the test yet. She asked him to sit down. They need to. Cheol interrupted her and said, "Auntie." Gyeonga fixed her hair and laughed and said, "No need to be afraid, she's fine." MC thought that he didn't expect that she was willing to suffer so much because of him. After all, she was put in the dungeon. She created a scandal at the headquarters, yelling at the elders and the older brother. Some time ago, Gyeonga was shouting in irritation, "Is it them?" She knows it's them. Again? The same thing again. They always do this. Currently, Gyeonga looked down and apologized to the baby. She couldn't hold back. She thought that they would do something bad to him. She was desperate. She thought that she would never see him again. Gyeonga grabbed her neck and screamed, as if she was suffocating. Cheol thought about it. To be honest, at first he didn't trust his auntie very much, but at some point he began to perceive her as a family member. He smiled and thought, well, it's time to admit that it is. He turned around and said that he will get her out of here. She needs to wait a little. Gyeonga extended her hand and asked what, but how? No need. He will get into trouble. MC smiled and said that he does not have to do anything. She will be released soon anyway. He will visit her later. After some time, the plane landed, and he was already met by the heirs and servants. Taishin got off the plane and heard that he had returned. He went down and clarified, had he been gone for a long time? Hwayeon bowed and answered, no, her lord. A bath and dinner are waiting for him at home. Taishin answered, okay. At the very end, Cheol and Hwa were standing. MC looked at his father and thought that after the naming ceremony, he became many times stronger. But in the presence of his father, all this strength fades. There is a huge difference between them. Taishin looked at him, and then turned away abruptly. MC thought, did he look at him? Taishin spoke. He always said that those who give up easily cannot be members of the Lee clan. However, out of everyone present, only one looked at him with insolence. MC's eyes widened in surprise, and Hwa whispered, who is the patriarch talking about? The elder brother? Cheol smiled and thought, he tried to be more modest, but he is still perceptive. After a while, guests gathered in the Lee clan's dining hall. MC stood by the wall and thought that the Lee clan rarely hosted such a luxurious feast. He noticed a man in the crowd and wondered. This man, it seems he once became the youngest master of magic, the master of the Onmyoryo ministry, or the minister? Suddenly, Choi disturbed his thoughts and asked for forgiveness from the young master. He bowed and said that the Lord wanted to see him. Cheol asked, Father? Choi replied, yes, he should follow him. MC wondered, why is he calling him? He hopes it won't cause trouble. After a while, he bowed and said, he was calling him father. He looked up and was surprised to see his older brother next to him. Cheol thought, he doesn't like this. Taishin spoke. He guesses he already knows why he called him. He frowned and ordered him to tell him everything that happened at the ceremony. He met an outsider there. Myungjin told him to arrest him. He asked him to tell the truth. Is this his job? MC lowered his head and thought he knew he would see through them. He replied, he was right, father. He offered his older brother a deal to share the blame for this incident in exchange for 3 days of access to the library. Taishin closed his eyes and replied, only for his exploits on the island, he is willing to forgive this adventure, but only this time. MC bowed and thanked him. Taishin looked at his eldest son and said, Myungjin, he deserves punishment, but later. Now it's time for him to return to his duties. He is in charge of the feast. Myungjin said that he obeyed. He looked at MC and smiled. Cheol looked at him slightly guiltily and thought, won't he get into trouble because of him? Taishin said that he tried to lie to him. However, he accomplished several feats at once. He will get what Myeongjung promised him. And he also found the secret room of inner struggle. This is worthy of respect. For this, he will receive a reward. MC said. Then he wants. After some time, at the ceremonial feast, Taeshin said that he expressed his gratitude to everyone who came from afar. May heaven bless the two young heroes of this celebration. He proposed to continue the naming ceremony. MC and Hwa were kneeling in front of him. Taeshin asked the 8th daughter Hwa to come to him. Chosen one of the sacred sword, she always illuminates those around her with the light of her spirit. That's why he decided to name her Sohyun, which means bright and lucky. She happily put her hand to her chest and thanked him. Taeshin looked towards MC and told the 9th son, Young, to come to him. He stood up and thought that they were reacting to him in the same way as in his previous life. But it doesn't matter. Taeshin spoke. He is firm and alert, smart and unyielding. Like a blacksmith turning a piece of ore into a dangerous weapon. There is no better name for him. He snapped his fingers and said that he names him Cheol, which means iron. MC thought that he wished for this name himself. He wants to be as strong as iron, but now it will have a new meaning. He will not stop until he becomes the patriarch of the Lee clan. He is Lee Cheol. MC put his hand to his chest and shouted that he thanked him. After some time in the place of imprisonment of the Lee clan members, Jongha was sitting in a cleaned room. She grabbed her head and screamed loudly, and then began to shake the bars. She ordered to let her out. She is suffocating here. This is simply outrageous. They did not even let her into her nephew's naming ceremony. He said that he would get her out of here. And where is he? The guards were standing near the door with tired faces. They mentally prayed for salvation. Suddenly they received a call, and a moment later the guard opened the door and said that she can go, madam. She asked in surprise, what? The guard replied that her case would be decided later, but she was released from custody. Gyeongha ran out of the building, pushing the door with her foot and screamed loudly, Hooray! The guard ordered not to kick the door. Suddenly the voice of MC was heard, who asked the aunt to wait. She turned around and said happily, Nephew, did he really do it so that she would be released? Cheol replied, Yes, he did. Gyeongha asked a question, but how? She picked up the piece of paper he gave her and asked, What is it? MC replied, Auntie owes him now. She looked at the piece of paper and began to read out loud. Lee Gyeongha, she should receive the powers of the council elder and be appointed as the teacher of the 9th heir, Lee Cheol. MC smiled and said, He is now her student, Auntie. After a while, Gawa asked, Will they start today? MC adjusted his kimono and replied, Yes, right now. Gawa cried again and said, Young master, he is already 13 years old. Cheol threw his bag over his shoulder and said, Well then, he is going. Now his cadet life begins. After a while, he approached the school and the other cadets began to whisper. Someone asked, Is this that half-breed? Yes, it is the illegitimate one, Lee Cheol. The cadet heard that he did unimaginable things during the steel selection and naming ceremonies. Yes, he was just lucky. He is an idiot. Can anyone really be so lucky at the naming ceremony? Now this is interesting. Cheol stood among all these whispers and thought, Idiot, idiot, maybe that's enough already? Suddenly a voice was heard. Look, it's the 8th heiress. She is holding herself completely differently. Of course, she is the legitimate heir of the great clan. MC thought that she was welcomed completely differently than him. Sohyun walked up to him and said hello. Cheol said hello back and said it had been a while. Sohyun rubbed her neck and asked if he held a grudge against her for what happened at the naming ceremony. MC asked what exactly. She replied that she told him she was disappointed. Cheol thought they are so grown up now, they communicate so coldly. He exhaled and told her to forget it. He didn't even think about it. Sohyun happily asked, Really? 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 She exhaled and exclaimed, What a relief. He just knows how to be petty. Has he noticed? Sohyun said to forget it. She heard that his aunt was assigned as his teacher, and that he was allowed to visit the library. MC was just about to answer her, when suddenly there was a loud shout. Attention! The guard said that they were now going to divide them into classes. When they call his name, they stand in a straight line in front of their instructor. There was a whisper around Cheol again. What will happen? The cadet is nervous. If he is assigned to the wrong class, it will be a disaster. MC sighed and thought that they can understand. A cadet's education lasts 3 years and the division into classes plays a big role. There are 5 classes in each school year and the classes are divided into ranks. The guard handed over a paper and said, Young lady Lee Sohyun, she's going to the first class. She smiled and thanked him. Cheol thought, of course, Sohyun is assigned to the first class. The guard spoke, then Mr. Lee Cheol. He handed him a paper and said, Please. MC thanked him and then thought about it. He thinks it is written on his face that he is unhappy. He suspected that this would happen, but he did not think that they would act so openly. The 5th class, which is called a dump, that's where the mediocre and the ignorant are put. The cadets from the Lee clan are put in based on how well they did at the naming ceremony, and the results are judged by the Council of Elders and a coalition of influential relatives on Miss Bake's side. They probably think they're putting obstacles in his way, but that's a plus for him. Less work. The guard walked up to MC and said, "Young Master Lee Cheol, it's time to go. The 5th grade is meeting there." MC replied, "He got it, he's coming." Suddenly he felt So-hyun's gaze on him and thought, "What? Wow, what's with that expression? It looks like she's ready to intervene if he doesn't do something himself." So-hyun thought, why was he put in the dump? Won't he even resist? Cheol waved his hand and thought, but he's actually fine. He has something else on his mind. The cadet asked, "Oh my god, 5th grade, will he even get credit? So what will he tell his father now? He shouldn't be in this trashy class. These idiots from the Lee family are raising the standards for everyone." MC looked at them and thought, what a pathetic sight. Are these the cadets of the Lee clan? Suddenly a student came up to him and asked, "The young heir of the Lee clan? Is that him?" Cheol said yes. Kim Han, 14 years old, smiled and said he guessed he really wants to meet him. He is Kim Han, the son of a blacksmith who works for the respected clan. It is an honor for him to be in the same class with him, the young heir. MC thought about it. Kim Han? He doesn't remember such a thing from his past life. He asked, why did he want to meet him? Kim Han smiled and said, well, people from the clan talk about him, the young heir. He admires him. MC realized that he was not lying. He said that he was pleased to meet him. And what does he think about being assigned to the 5th grade? Kim Han smiled and asked, I guess that means that this is all his skills can do, isn't it? Well, who knows what the future holds? Cheol looked at his happy face and smiled, and then said that he suits him. Suddenly Choi In-ha and the guys approached the guys, saying that they were pleased to meet them. They offered to be friends with them. If they have any questions, they should feel free to. Suddenly the teacher clapped his hands and said that since they have met, it's time to begin. A 5th rank warrior, a 5th grade instructor, Lee Jung-ho said that he was a 5th grade instructor. He had a batch of newbies coming today. He offered to get to know each other better before the lesson began. Cheol looked at him and thought, he remembered their instructor. He was just as energetic and optimistic. In his past life, he even gave him private lessons when he was behind the program. Jung-ho turned around and said, they are moving on. In-ha should explain the rest to the newbies. In-ha smiled and greeted the new arrivals. He was embarrassed to admit it, but he was already repeating his year, and he had been the class monitor for 2 years. They had been standing for quite a while now. If anyone wanted to sit down, please do so. Now they needed to elect a new class monitor. Even though they were cadets, they were going on real combat missions. So the class monitor was like the squad leader. The instructors were in charge of the curriculum and classes, and the class monitor was in charge of everything else. The cadet asked, how do they elect a class monitor? Ina replied that he had forgotten to tell them. He didn't know how it was in other classes, but in their class, it was customary to hold a competition first and then elect a monitor. He folded his arms and suggested that the competition begin. The rules were physical combat only, no magic. There would be a break after each match. The MC asked with displeasure, was he serious? In-ha asked, young Master Lee Cheol, is something bothering you? Cheol replied, everything. Everything he said, and all their rules. He took the sword and told them to wake up. This is the Lee clan's fighting school. If they want to play schoolchildren, they should go study at a civilian school somewhere in the city. In-ha replied that he was judging them too harshly. They just wanted to restore order the way they used to. MC stuck the sword in the ground and spoke. He saw that the words were hard for him to understand. He leaned on the wooden sword and told them to come to him one by one. He can handle any of them. After a while, Cheol was breathing heavily, and next to him lay the rest of the cadets asking for help. In-ha stood to the side and looked at them in surprise. He thought, it's incredible how many people he beat up on his own. At that moment, MC turned to him and told him to call the next one. In-ha thought, what a commanding voice. He replied, there was no one else. Cheol smiled and asked, really? His turn? Choi In-ha. They started fighting, and In-ha thought, why is he willing to go so far? This is a simple competition, without awards and honors. This is an ordinary cadet school, and not Shaolin. He is so tired that he can barely hold the sword. However, he understood everything. Once he was also desperate and wanted to win at any cost. And then he thought that it is also possible to adapt, to make concessions. That this is what it means to be an adult, and this is how you can live. He wants to win. He really wants to win. MC dodged his attack and said that he will be the winner. He quickly knocked the sword out of In-ha's hands, which surprised him greatly. In-ha fell to his knees and grabbed his hand. Cheol exhaled and ordered someone to take him to a doctor. Suddenly, In-ha screamed that he was not finished with him yet. He grabbed the sword and swung it, saying that the fight is not over. MC thought, is he left-handed? He broke his right hand, but he can fence with his left hand, and his look completely changed. Cheol hit him and said no, he said it's over. He swung again and hit In-ha's stomach. He screamed and flew to the side. MC ordered him to be carried away, then said that he was used to living like there was no tomorrow. Do they think that life is easy for the easygoing? If you don't fight for yourself tirelessly, you will eventually lose everything. Sometimes it took him a lot of effort to even breathe. In order to protect himself and everything dear to him, he must fight tirelessly. Who among them has such a life? The beaten cadet stood in front of him and listened to him. Cheol clenched his fist and shouted that this is a real fight. After a while, the teacher came up to him and said that this was too much. 4 of them had cracked bones, 3 had internal injuries. Cheol frowned and replied that if they wanted to survive in the Lee clan, this should be a trifle for them. Jungho replied, but not all children are the same. MC shouted, "Teacher." Even the students already understood what he meant. Does he really need to explain it to him? There are very few people like him in the Lee clan. He is kind, but he works with the cadets of the Lee clan. If a cadet has gone astray, he must bring him back to the right path, even if he doesn't like it. It's not his desire, but his duty. Jungho clenched his fist but remained silent. The next day, MC came to school and thought that he really overdid it yesterday. He saw his classmates in front of him and thought, some of them were glaring at him, but no one was looking away. If they acted like they did yesterday, hiding their eyes, it would mean that they would definitely not amount to anything. This gives hope. He passed by them and heard whispers. He showed up. Idiot upstart. Suddenly, Kim Han called out to him, and Cheol turned around and said that he was early. Kim Han said yes, but he didn't want to be late after he beat him. MC said that they were just cadets. It would be okay if he was late. Kim Han laughed and asked, "Young master, can he ask him a weird question?" Cheol said of course. Kim Han asked, what should he do to become as strong as him? The protagonist clarified that he would tell him right away. He was not at the level to teach anyone. However, he could answer that Han had good eyesight and reaction. Yesterday, the comrade dodged MC's feints 3 times. Eyesight is Han's strong point. He thinks that complex techniques will be better for the comrade than brute force. Cheol asked the comrade to make every effort to hone this, and one day Han will notice how much he has changed. The comrade lowered his head and thanked the protagonist. Ina greeted his comrades, and they paid attention to him. MC noted that he looks very bad. He definitely cannot train today. Inha, with many wounds on his face and with a broken hand, clarified, and if he missed the lesson, would Cheol understand? The protagonist would again start talking about the struggle and how bad Inha is. He resolutely walked past his comrades and added that he came only because he did not want to listen to it. MC smiled and thought that Inha had changed. After a while, the instructor ordered them to line up. He announced that 4 of them had asked for time off and 5 simply didn't show up, so there were 11 of them present. The instructor was very surprised and thought that they all hadn't gotten enough sleep, and the atmosphere was completely different. As soon as one predator appeared in the classroom, ordinary children turned into small, scared animals. The instructor clarified that today, he was supposed to evaluate their level, but their condition definitely wouldn't allow it. He clenched his hand into a fist and said that he would have to give them some slack. The instructor announced the start of the lesson. After a while, the instructor said that he had looked at their physical condition. The class monitor would be watching them study in pairs. The protagonist exhaled tiredly and thought that the evaluation of their condition had lasted for 10 whole hours. Even he was already tired. He confidently opened his eyes and thought that there was no time to rest. The cadets quietly asked if they thought the instructor was acting differently today. Many people were injured yesterday, and he would have let them rest before. The protagonist asked for their attention and clarified that they already knew that he was their new class monitor. As Inha had said yesterday, the class monitor only reports to the instructor and bears great responsibility. Training with him would be tough, and those who did not want to work hard should leave. The MC had no time to deal with those who were lagging behind. 5th grade cadet Kim Bosong irritably asked the freak not to get cocky. Cheol lowered his weapon and clarified that anyone who didn't like him could challenge him to a fight at any time. If they dealt him at least one strong blow, they would become class monitors themselves. The protagonist raised his hand and suggested ending the conversation and getting started right now. He asked the cadets to split into pairs. After a while, the MC thought that this meant that only 6 were able to fight, and the rest had already given up. He clarified that they had enough and released the cadets. They said with fury that these were not lessons, but some kind of hell, and all because of this freak. The guy completely disliked studying. Han, breathing heavily, asked them to stop. He angrily clenched his hand into a fist and said that he was also very angry. Although the protagonist was exhausted, none of them were able to land a single blow on him. The cadet looked at the tired Inha asked, "And what does he think?" The comrade clarified, "Last year everything was cool, right?" Inha agreed and replied that he liked it so much that he even remained in the 2nd year. If it does not change this year, then the truth until the end of his life will remain weak. Even if he receives at least 100 fractures, Inha still wants to try. They also realize that this freak, or rather the young master of the Lee clan, is trying to convey to them. The cadets did not answer, and Inha confidently added that the MC was talking about the struggle, so he wants to try what it is. He feels that for him this is the last chance to change. So he advises them to wake up and not pretend that the cadets did not understand anything. After some time, Gyeongga asked him to transform. Cheol, with sensors connected to his head, created a mana flame in his hand. Gyeongga asked him to stop and said that it was enough. She looked at the piece of paper in disappointment and exclaimed that it didn't work again. She can't clear the aura, it's crumbling. Gyeongga angrily screamed that she never thought that such a problem would occur after reaching 3 stars. If she had some reliable sources about the ancient ways of using mana, there would be a way out of this. The protagonist thought that if he could read Boundless's memories, but he doesn't let her. MC only managed to find out a little in the library. Black dragons were the terror of ancient Korea. Even monsters were afraid of them. They killed the best generals of the empire. The heroes of ancient Korea gathered to seal the dragons in Mount Mangwi in the north. For this feat, the emperor gave them lands. The heroes, inspired by the generosity of the emperor, forged a one-of-a-kind sword, Boundless. MC accidentally found the history of the origin of this sword and was very surprised. Gyeongga noted that Cheol had nevertheless reached the stage of aura formation. The fact that he is moving towards achieving 3 stars on his own is already a miracle. Soon they will somehow find a way to overcome this obstacle. In fact, the protagonist already knows almost perfectly how to do mana enhancement and transformation. MC happily put on his jacket and thanked her for her help. Cheol asked what would happen when he reached 3 stars. Auntie smiled, put her hand to her cheek and replied that he would be able to use the Gangchi technique, magic using aura, but it would take a lot of time to master it. So how is the protagonist studying here? Cheol exhaled sternly and replied that everything is just the same as always. Gyeongga happily asked if she could help him with anything. The protagonist asked, for example, with what? She confidently put her hand on her chest and laughingly exclaimed that he would find out soon. Gyeongga asked to trust her. After some time, Cheol thought that he knew that she was up to something bad. The instructor announced that today they would have a special lecture on mana techniques. He asked the cadets to stand at attention and said that in front of them was Elder Gyeongga from the Lee Clan Scientific Institute. The instructor pointed at her and asked for applause. She smiled, picked up a piece of chalk, and said that she hated waiting. Gyeongga suggested that they get started. Cheol looked at his aunt and thought that she was actually a good teacher. After a while, Gyeongga clapped her hands and exclaimed that the boring part of the lecture was over. She happily suggested moving on to the fun part. She would teach them their institute's improved version of the iron line technique. The instructor asked in surprise, "Isn't this the end of the lesson?" Gyeongga confidently asked, what was the instructor talking about? This was the most important thing in their lesson. She asked the cadets to sit up straight. Gyeongga raised her hand and asked them to watch carefully, because she was only showing them once. The protagonist wondered what would happen. The aunt put her hands on his back and said that usually the direct heirs of the Lee clan receive full support from the family. MCs don't give anything like that, so she, his aunt, would help a little. Joel smiled and thanked her. Gyeongga clarified that if everything worked out correctly, his energy potential would double. That's really cool, right? The protagonist exhaled and agreed with her. After a while, the instructor clapped his hands and asked the cadets for attention. Now they will train with the mana control technique that the respected elder taught them. The instructor asked the cadets to split into pairs. Inha turned to the young master and asked to allow him to practice with him. He resolutely raised his weapon and specified that he immediately said that he would not give him a head start. MC, with a confident smile, replied that he was glad to hear it. He will not let him first hit. They instantly started the battle. Gyeongga, watching them, thought that her nephew was a little beast, how he reminded her of her as a child. She turned her head to the side, and the cadet noted how this freak irritated him. The protagonist is illegitimate and does not receive all the privileges, but MC is still higher in status than them. His physical strength is many times greater. Cheol has developed special abilities. The protagonist begins his studies at an obviously higher level. The comrade replied that that's exactly it. They didn't rest here either. Why does MC think he's better than them? Gyeongga turned to the cadets and they screamed in fear that they didn't know she was here. Gyeongga, looking terrified, approached the cadet's face and asked if they were talking about her nephew. No, but her student? The cadet bowed in fear and apologized for such rude words. She asked ominously, what do they know to talk about him like that? The cadets, shaking with horror, replied that the young gentleman wasn't omniscient either. Bosong noted that they had worked very hard too, but Gyeongga didn't pay attention to them, as if they were nobody. Of course, The cadets would be weaker than the protagonist because they grew up in different families and had access to different educations. Gyeonga turned her head to the side and asked, "Does he really not understand?" "Yeah, maybe it's better for them not to know how different MC's life is from theirs. Cadets would understand that their life and studies are just for kids." Bosong angrily clenched his hand into a fist and thought, "What's so different about this freak?" Well, anyway, they'll see for themselves. After a while, the instructor said that they would end the lesson here. Bosong looked at the tired protagonist and thought, there was no difference. MC always talks about the need to fight, but he was just born different. The cadet quickly ran up to Bosong and asked, "Did the comrade say he would keep an eye on this freak today? But are they allowed to walk around the corps?" Bosong replied that they were cadets, so of course they could. "This fool still lives in a dorm for ordinary people. Not for direct heirs, it's not a restricted area. They won't let this jerk boss them around. Today, Bosong will prove to Cheol that he's not worthy of it." Sometime later at night, Bosong, standing behind the wall, wondered how long the protagonist had been in the lab. It had been 9 hours already. The cadet exhaled and asked to go home. He said that he was very tired after training, and his comrade agreed with him. The cadet noted that they still didn't know what MC was doing there. The cadets, smiling tensely, raised their hands in farewell, and Bosong called them weak. He looked at Cheol walking down the stairs and thought that the protagonist had left. MC, looking very tired, said that he needed to hold on. Bosong, watching him, thought that he could finally go home. Is this a training field for direct heirs? But MC can't go there. The cadets were very surprised to hear screams. The cadet asked what kind of screams were those. His comrade asked, "Is this how Cheol trains?" The cadet said sadly that this freak, or rather the young master, was really strong. He asked to just stop and noted that the young master was right. They should follow Inha's example. Bosong clarified that he also did not refuse private lessons. They were the same. The cadets looked at each other sadly. Bosong wondered how this freak was better than him. He would prove it at all costs. He could not be wrong. Cheol walked down the road, and Bosong, watching him, thought that the protagonist had finally gone to the barracks. A bright light appeared behind Bosong, and the guard ordered him to stop and asked who was coming. The guard adjusted his cap in surprise and noted that it was a cadet. Young Master Cheol comes here every night, but he did not expect that he would have a friend with him. Bosong wondered, really every night? He raised his hands with a smile and replied that he just went out to relieve himself. The guard said that cadets are not allowed to walk at night and asked the cadet to go. Bosong agreed and looked at the window in MC's room and thought that the light in his room was on, and it was already 2 o'clock in the morning. Bosong turned around and said that he would go. He headed back along the road and thought that it was time to go back. Sometime later, at 5 in the morning, at the training ground for direct heirs, Bosong put his hand to his head and thought that he went to bed too late yesterday. He was very surprised to see Cheol and thought that the protagonist was very tired. Even if by birthright he has better physical characteristics and the ability to manage mana, can a 13-year-old boy be healthy if MC sleeps 3 to 4 hours a day? And Bosong comes to the barracks, watches TV, plays, and rests. He often went out for independent training, but he had good food, sleep, and entertainment. Cheol turned his attention to the cadet and asked what happened. Bosong clarified, "Isn't the protagonist tired?" MC lowered his head in irritation and noticed that Bosong had been following him yesterday, along with his friends. Bosong confirmed this and said that the young master was receiving support by birthright. Cheol was born different from them. The protagonist replied that he had been living like this since early childhood. He could honestly admit that he had allowed himself a little more sleep. Of course, MC was tired. Bosong sadly lowered his head and asked, but why was Cheol driving himself so hard? The protagonist firmly placed his hand on his shoulder and clarified, "The cadet understands this himself, right?" MC continued on, and Bosong clenched his teeth in fear. After some time on the training ground, Choi turned to the master and said that his order was drawn up. Taishan extended his hand forward and asked to give him the order. He sternly looked at the sheets of paper and said that this was not enough. Choi noted that they were talking about the dungeons of the 7th and 8th levels. They were dangerous for cadets. Taishan clarified that it is easier and faster to create a weapon than to train personnel. He needs people who can survive in any conditions. Choi replied that he understands everything and will do as the master said. He has one more piece of news. After a while, Taishan noticed that this is what the younger one did. Cheol has been looking with adult eyes since childhood. The protagonist is different. The master recognizes the look of a person who knows what it is to be trampled and deprived of everything. Taishan looked at his fist and added that leading and making people change is a completely different skill. He handed Choi sheets of paper and asked him to change the difficulty of the exam. His daughter is also studying there, so the standards should be raised for everyone. Taishan confidently looked up, clutching a towel in his hand, and asked if the protagonist is capable of leading people. He will see how MC shows himself. At the same time, on the training ground for the direct heirs of the 5th grade, the instructor entered the site. The cadet yelled that he had lost and asked him to give up already. His comrade replied that he would not give up. The instructor was very surprised when he looked at the running cadets and thought that today was a day off, and these guys were training so early. He didn't even call them. The cadet exclaimed in surprise that the instructor had come. The instructor noted that he saw that they had decided to study even on a day off. If anyone remained in the barracks, the cadets should call them. The instructor should make an announcement. The cadet exclaimed that he was listening to him. The instructor announced that this was unexpected news, but it had been decided to hold the midterm exam earlier. Therefore, they were all given a week off. This would be their last vacation this year, so the cadets should enjoy it. The instructor, looking at the joyful expressions on the cadets' faces, thought that he saw that they would not even have to be reminded that at least a minimal level of training should be maintained during this time. He happily noted that he thought the cadets would cope and exclaimed that that was all. Cheol looked down and thought, a sudden rest before the exam, and the exam will be earlier? Is this even normal? The protagonist looked at the cadets with confusion and asked, what are they waiting for? The comrades happily exclaimed, what is it about him? Inha asked what MC will do during the vacation. Cheol replied that everyone decides for themselves. What are they asking him? He asked the cadets to enjoy their vacation and said that he will not force them to train during the vacation. The cadets were very surprised to hear this. They quietly said that they cannot believe that the young master is saying such a thing. The cadet thought that Cheol would make them train to the point of exhaustion. He will say that they were not going to rest anyway? That is how they should train. The protagonist asked in surprise, who do they take him for? They will not again find out who is the boss, like on the first day. MC, smiling, lowered his head, asked the cadets to rest as much as they want. This is also important, isn't it? Cheol knows that even if he tells them to rest, they still won't relax much. The protagonist asks them to spend their time wisely and says that they will see each other after the holidays. The cadets raise their hands in joy and yell. Sometime later, Jeonga is in the lab. She sadly remarked that she heard that they were on vacation, and the MC, instead of resting, decided to distract his aunt. She has a lot of work. Cheol, leafing through his notebook, clarified that when he came, she was watching uninteresting videos on her phone. Jeonga raised her fist in irritation and yelled that Haman was finally recognized by the chairman and that he was cured of leukemia. The protagonist asked in surprise, is this worth her time? Let his aunt tell him. Were the exams moved on father's orders? Jeonga confirmed this and said that she said that by official order. MC lowered his head tensely and thought that in this case the exam would be very difficult. Cheol needs to make a breakthrough in mana control. Apparently, to do this, he will need to access the next memory of the Nameless One. If this has not happened yet, then he is missing something important. The protagonist thought that giving it the shape of a sword would help, but this is not it. There is nothing to do, he needs to think. MC looked at the fallen stack of papers in surprise. Auntie screamed, what is he doing? She asked him to be careful. Jeonga told him not to turn anything over for her. Cheol reached out his hand to the piece of paper and asked what this is. On the piece of paper, it is written that the main difference between ancient and modern martial arts is the goal. There is a theory that in ancient times, martial arts were primarily intended to fight monsters. MC wondered, isn't the goal the same with the slashing demon? In its original form, this technique has amazing power. Jeonga brought the cookie to her mouth and asked what happened. Cheol decisively turned his head to the side and yelled that he understood everything and would tell her later. He urgently needed to train. He quickly ran to the exit, throwing sheets of paper to the sides. Aunt angrily called him bad. After a while, the protagonist filled the sword in his hand with mana. He confidently thought that he needed to imagine the enemy. MC closed his eyes and thought that it was a huge monster, many times stronger than him. It was huge. Cheol needed a technique that was highly effective, simple, and had an impossible-to-dodge blow. Aesthetic but ineffective techniques would not work for this purpose. That was the clear purpose of the slicing demon technique. The protagonist struck with great force and broke the earth into pieces. MC jumped up imagining the opponents and thought that he needed to kill the monsters. He used slicing demon and struck. Dark smoke dissipated around Cheol. He exclaimed that he understood everything, clutching the sword in his hand. The protagonist smiled and asked what the enemy would tell him this time. He moved to another place and wondered, where is he? The training ground? This environment is not like in the first memory. MC noticed the man training and thought that he saw him. This amazing speed. What is that? Every time his weapon changes, his aura changes too. It is not he who does this, but the Nameless One. The Lee Clan member noticed that the man had changed his approach again. The man stopped and asked not to spy on other people's training. The clan member clarified that the man had been training constantly since he received this sword. Have you already come up with a name for the new techniques? The man disagreed and said that these were still very low-quality developments, not techniques. The clan member extended his hand to him and offered to help. 10,000 changes. How can a man do that? The man replied that this was not bad. Who is with him? The clan member replied that he was alone. He quickly blocked the man's attack and clarified he wanted to fight well. Why would he bring someone? The protagonist was very surprised looking at the clan member and thought that these eyes, hair, yellow and black, a distinctive feature of the Lee clan. After some time, the bus drives through a dark forest. Cheol, looking out the window, thought that this landscape is no different from the future or the past. A barrier separating safe and dangerous zones. A long time ago, not far from the Pacific Ocean, a huge crack formed, a blue hole, an unknown space that has not even been officially explored properly. Monsters appeared from there. For a long time, humanity fought them and tried to reclaim its territory. However, there were lands that were not developed. People called these areas unknown or dangerous zones. Han clarified, they say the barrier separates safe and dangerous zones. The closer a person is to the dangerous zones, the more deserted the landscape becomes. MC noted that they are still inside the barrier. The settlements near the danger zones have a lagging development level. Cheol smirked and thought that he had only lived there for a short time to hide in his past life. The instructor asked them not to relax. The bus moved on quickly. The instructor said that the place they were entering was an uncharted dungeon in the danger zone. The cadets got off the bus and the instructor asked everyone to gather. He specified that they would set up camp here, check the supplies, and then begin the tests. The escort warriors would only guard their camp. From now on, the cadets would have to take everything upon themselves. The instructor hit his chest with his fist and asked them not to worry. He would give them as much support as he could. The instructor asked them to show what they had already prepared. The cadets strongly agreed with him. Cheol said that from now on, he would take command. But the cadets should know, the exam has definitely become more difficult because of him. This is the last chance. If anyone wants to leave, it is better to do so now and quickly. The protagonist thought that was right. What was going to happen now was not a normal evaluation of the young cadets. A forest of spiders with human faces. A tricky dungeon with webs spread everywhere so that the monsters could determine the location of the test subject. In order to take a photo of a spider with a human face inside the dungeon, this was obviously his father's test. Inha pointed out that there was no point in trying to test them now. None of the 5th grade cadets would be more convincing. Han happily exclaimed that that was right. Bozong confidently said that they trusted Cheol. The protagonist was very surprised to hear this and breathed out in relief. He noticed with a smile that he saw that everyone was full of enthusiasm. Bozong sheepishly replied that it was because MC himself created this atmosphere. Cheol happily said that then he believed that no one would give up. They would check the communication and supplies and then head out. The cadets resolutely raised their hands and agreed with him. After a while, the protagonist thought that spiders with human faces were very cunning and behaved like ants or bees. He clarified, everyone knows? Their mission is to record the movements of a spider with a human face in a forest that is at least 10 years old. MC turned his head to the side and added that from now on, Inha will be in charge of command. He was very surprised and asked what he meant. Cheol pointed his finger at the forest and replied that from now on, he moves alone. He will become bait for monsters. The cadets were very surprised. They yelled angrily, what does this mean? After a while, the spiders crawl along the trees, leaving behind a web. The sword instantly pierced the spider and black blood flowed down from it. MC, breathing heavily, thought that everyone was finally gathered. It was worth killing them to spread danger pheromones. Spiders with human faces bring nutritious prey to their nests and feed the larvae. The easiest way to see nutritious prey is to prove that this prey has tremendous power. Cheol swung his sword and used Slashing Demon. He instantly cut the spider. Many opponents headed towards him. The protagonist calmly grinned while standing in front of the spiders flying towards him. After a while, MC lying on the web thought, what is this? Is he inside a cocoon? If so, then everything is going according to plan. His stomach is a little swollen due to the poison, but otherwise his body is fine. He decided to hide his presence with a technique. Cheol raised his sword and cut the web. He confidently knelt down and thought, if this is a nest, then there must be a larva here? The protagonist stabbed the sword into the web. He looked at something with confusion. MC thought, are there so many cocoons here? It's simply impossible to catch and hide so many in a day. They should have been eaten a long time ago. So why? Cheol looked in amazement at the huge cocoon shrouded in mana and wondered what it was. The cocoon began to move rapidly. The protagonist put his hand on his chest and wondered if the dark energy resonated with it. The cocoon instantly burst and a spider queen with a human face, level 5, appeared from it. She smiled and clarified that the children must be hungry. MC, hiding behind the web, wondered if a monster in a dungeon of only level 6 could speak human language? No. She didn't open her mouth. If so, could the dark energy possibly read this monster's thoughts? The queen pointed her paw towards the cocoon and tore it apart. Cheol looked at the smoke in fear and thought that he had no room to maintain the technique. The queen looked at the protagonist and asked what he was doing. What woke her up was inside MC. She spread mana streams around with a terrifying look and asked him to give it to her. Cheol confidently raised his weapon and thought that it was a piercing sound that only a high-level predator could make, but it didn't work on him. The queen screamed in irritation. How dare he suppress her mana? She looked at the hole in the cave and called MC impudent. The queen quickly turned her head to the side. A powerful and bright explosion instantly thundered. The queen looked irritably at the bright light from the explosion and noted that this was her forest. What is the protagonist doing? Cheol smirked and said that these were magical explosive shells. Fortunately, there was a lot to burn here. At his signal, they simply exploded brightly. After some time, Han confidently put his hand to the headphones and ordered the first group to move out. There was about half an hour left to go to the nest. At the same time, the instructor put his hand to the headphones and exclaimed that this was the base camp. He relayed through MC's earpiece that they had detected a level 5 magic power in the nest. Cheol said that he could handle it and asked to support the cadets first. The queen clenched her teeth in rage and exclaimed that how dare a human. She raised her hand with a terrifying look and ordered the children to act. The queen asked to save her forest. She turned her attention to the protagonist and said that she would deal with him herself. A human child thinks that he can defeat her. He trusts his comrades who are running to the nest. She wonders if they will even be able to get here. The protagonist can't do anything to her. Cheol asked not to underestimate him, and the queen asked with great surprise, "What does that mean?" The protagonist confidently smiled and picked up the sword shrouded in mana. After a while, Inha quickly ran down the road and ordered each group to continue detonating their shells to lure the spiders. Group 1 provides an escape route for the young master. Bosong asked to wait a minute and yelled that something happened in the nest. Will they be able to break through like this? Inha exclaimed that the young master instructed them. They are acting according to plan. He mentally asked the protagonist to wait a little longer. Flames engulfed the forest around the cave where the Spider Queen is. She attacked with great fury and yelled that why isn't MC dying? Why is he still standing? What is he even looking at? Cheol calmly exhaled while standing in the smoke. He thought that there was a hidden flow of numerous forces. The eyes that can see such things are demonic eyes. With this power, he can see the flow of magical energy and avoid fatal injuries. The protagonist coughed up blood and thought that the gap in power was so great that it was impossible to completely dodge. Fortunately, the queen had just hatched, so she did not control her body well. There is only one chance. He confidently raised the sword shrouded in dark mana. MC used Manbian Infinite Dimension. He stabbed with a projection of chi lightning with a terrifying look. Dark lightning rose into the sky, illuminating the space. Green blood gushed out of the queen's body. Cheol, breathing heavily, thought that it was shallow. The queen ominously tilted her head to the side and screamed that it hurt. The protagonist thought that, as he suspected, it would not be possible to cut such thick skin in one go. The queen said that she would accept him as a servant. She would take out what was inside him and restore this body, and she will make MC suffer for eternity. The queen raised her hands and sent out threads of mana from them. Cheol tensely dodges the attacks. The thread hit the protagonist's head and subdued him to the Spider Queen. MC, in great pain, put his hands on his head and screamed. The queen smiled maliciously and laughed, covering her mouth with her hand. She exclaimed that this is an arrogant face. Suddenly she coughed up blood and covered her face with her hands and screamed, "What is happening?" The queen raised her hand, bleeding. Cheol noted that she should be careful. Spiders and insects are vulnerable to fire. Explosions thundered near the queen, and she screamed in pain. The protagonists noted that they were late. Han hit his chest with his fist, and asking for forgiveness, replied that they had been making their way to him for a long time. MC smiled and threw his arm over the cadet's shoulder and said that he thought they would have to go through some special training when they got back. The cadet noticed with great sadness that even in such a situation, Cheol was saying something like that. The protagonist agreed and suggested that they quickly leave the nest. After some time, the instructors quietly said that the 5th class of the first year was delayed for some reason. Although he was told that they returned half an hour ago, they did not abandon their mission like the 4th class. After all, this is a special dungeon of the 6th level. As far as we know, something strange happened. The instructor sternly apologized for being late. He clarified that they had several victims who needed to be sent to the hospital. The instructor pressed the button on the remote and suggested that they start the report right away. The 5th class's task was to film an adult specimen with a human face in the spider forest. During the task, a strange phenomenon occurred, and it was necessary to collect information and prepare. The 5th grade entered the dungeon, split into 4 groups, and fired 132 magical explosive projectiles. The man asked to wait and clarified, "Did he hear correctly? Did they use the projectiles?" The instructor confirmed this and exclaimed that in addition, 52 projectiles were expended when encountering monsters, which brought the total number of ammunition used to 184. The man stood up in anger, slammed his hand on the table, and yelled, "The 5th grade planned to burn the dungeon to the ground? The original mission was to photograph the abnormal phenomena, and the instructor thinks he succeeded? He is trying to pass off this bombardment as a successful mission?" The instructor sadly lowered his head and noted that the mission was completed, after all. The man asked where the footage was. He asked to show it. The door to the office swung open. Cheol apologized for being late and said that the video equipment was broken and it took some time to repair it. He held the object in his hand and clarified that there was a video. The protagonist handed the object to the instructor. Sohyun put her hand to her mouth in anger and whispered, "Why detonate the shells in the dungeon? And there was no need to climb into the nest." The MC confidently replied that it was the most reliable way to get the materials. After a while, the man said that this couldn't be true. He tensely put his hand to his forehead and said that after watching the video, he had to admit that it was all true. Using shells was like carrying a can of oil into a burning house. Do they really think this was the right plan? Cheol replied that he was just acting in the most efficient way. The man thought that a standard approach would have gotten the job done. The protagonist added decisively that he would complete the task at any cost. The martial arts world is a place where the result is the most important. The man thought that it wasn't an accident, even though it looked like it. But it was all part of the plan. The boy knew exactly what he was doing and what the outcome would be. The instructor said that the young master's plan was so radical that it was hard to compare it to anything. It was hard to give it a grade. However, since they managed to do it without casualties, everything was fine. The grade for this quarter was that out of the entire year, only the 5th grade received the highest score. Meanwhile, in the Lee Clan, the family head's office, Tae-shin, looking through the reports, said, 32 people died, 78 were injured. There were no problems since the contract had a disclaimer. What further measures for the injured during this assessment? The butler, looking at the document, replied that they guaranteed full payment of medical expenses for those with serious injuries, as well as those who will not be able to recover and lead a normal life. Tae-shin turned the page and asked to be updated. He did a good job. The butler agreed with him, and then holding the object in his hand, pointed it to the side, added that this is the information about each dungeon that he received. The clan head thoughtfully said that this is strange. The spider forest is a dangerous dungeon. Choi agreed with him. It is located at the northern tip of Gangwon province, and it is small. They were told that this is all that can be recovered from the video. However, it seems to have been edited. Tae-shin took a sip of his drink and noticed that the child was interesting. What did he think? The butler put his hand to his chest and said that it was a great achievement to be able to handle such a difficult task with his mind. However, he was concerned that he did not use the usual strategy. He asked if he noticed that too. The butler asked what? He would answer, going beyond the norm and standard. These things show the boy's courage, and he can create something new, because he is well trained in standard strategies. The fact that not only the cadets, but even the instructor followed this plan without objection proves the leadership qualities of the youngest son. No one else knows what really happened. He must increase the difficulty of the assessment level, not just this one, but all of them. Choi bowed and said, "It will be done." After that, the clan leader looked to the side and said that little by little, the other children will also start paying attention to the youngest. A few months later, the exclusive training ground of the 5th grade cadet corps. Kim Han raised his hand and called out to the young master. He knows that they just came back from the final assessment yesterday, right? The protagonist folded his arms and asked, "Isn't that why he gave them a break?" He replied that he meant it. Though, okay. The protagonist said, "The final assessment for this year is over, so maybe they want to rest, but they shouldn't forget there are still promotion exams ahead. He won't let anyone in this class fail this, okay?" The others happily replied, Yeah. He soon sighed and added, Han, he knows that he used up all his mana during the exam yesterday, so he wants him to memorize the spell all day today. He shouted in confusion. What? Then, MC put his hands on his sides and said that they will start physical training. The others agreed with him and started running. He thought that they were getting stronger not only physically, but also mentally. Instead of being upset about their shortcomings, they learned to do so. A year had passed since he became a cadet. Except for the first evaluation, they had not had a single case of expulsion or death. At that moment, the instructor came to him and said, "There he is, young master." He asked in surprise, "What happened?" The instructor replied that there would be an announcement soon regarding the promotion exam. He replied, "Okay, he will come now." After a while, he entered the room and saw So-hyun waving her hand and telling him to come over to her. She patted the chair next to her and told him to sit down. They needed to have a quick word. When he sat down in the right place, she folded her arms and asked with a smirk, "Their class did well, right?" He replied that he heard that the first class did just as well. After that, she smiled proudly and asked, "They were good, right?" She shook her head and said, no, she wasn't asking for praise. Then she whispered, "The upcoming exam is a real pain in the ass." The sixth sister and seventh brother were called to their mother's rooms recently. After that, a rumor spread that they were both dating cadets. The protagonist sighed and asked, "Are they trying to knock him out of the promotion race?" She replied, "Of course, it's not allowed, but that makes it scarier because you don't know what to expect." She raised her finger and added, "She knows he's weird and doesn't feel the same way, but he knows. The sixth sister and seventh brother are really scary people, right?" He replied, if she wanted to warn him, it's a bit late now since he's had problems since his first evaluation. She looked at him in surprise, and he thought, there were cases where they were either given bad equipment or someone intentionally omitted educational material, thus creating discrimination. He also heard that someone recently approached Bosong. So-hyun clenched her fist and added that she had told the cadets in her class everything. They were going to compete with him fairly this time and win. She was going to get a higher grade than him and make him call her big sister. He asked why she was so fixated on this. At that moment, the instructor entered the room and asked if everyone was here. As of today, this year's evaluations had already been completed. So he would tell them the details and schedule for the cadets' promotions this year. The result of their promotions would be determined after combining the results of their evaluations throughout the year and the exam results. And this exam would be held at the Y7 gate, located about 3 kilometers north of Kaesong. MC wondered, at the gate? He had expected the promotion exam to be different, but the gate. The instructor held up a sign and added that there would be nameplates inside the gate. The cadets would also have a name and a sign. Losing this would be equivalent to failing the exam and dying. There are no other rules. All they have to do now is collect as many nameplates as they can. This exam can't be won by just fighting well. It's all about capturing. The protagonist thought, this is what they're planning, right? Get stone tablets, steal them, and survive. If he loses his, he dies. The number of nameplates determines the exam result. Being considered dead is a trap. Even if someone steals a nameplate, no one on the outside will know about it. So all they have to do is steal someone else's nameplate or get a hidden one. He started tapping his hand and thinking. Besides, this is an individual competition, and second years are also participating. Someone must be involved. The exam is taking place behind the gate, isolated from the outside world. No matter what happens to the despised bastard, there will be no evidence left. This is a perfect opportunity that they can't miss. He made a very thoughtful expression, and So-hyun looked at him, surprised, thinking that this was happening to him. He thought that this was a great opportunity for him too. Meanwhile, Lee Sola, the sixth child of the Lee clan, put her feet up on the table and twitched her leg. Lee Jae-hak, the seventh child, asked what she was doing. She replied that she was watching her younger brother work. He said that she was crazy. And she folded her arms over her chest and asked indignantly, "Is he talking to his older sister like this?" Then she spread her arms to the side and added, "Compared to him, the eighth is much better. She is as cute as a rabbit. What makes her want to wring her neck? What is he thinking?" He asked about what. She replied, about her mother's orders. He sighed and replied that he thought this was a great opportunity to test him. Sola threw the knife in the air and said that she didn't like him. He, being a damn bastard, has the title of a direct descendant and behaves inappropriately. After that, she stuck the knife into the table and added, so as an older sister, she should teach him a few lessons. Because all this brat does is ride on their spineless older brother, she is obliged to show the idiot his place. Sometime later, at the exam to raise the cadet rank. This is an exam to move to the next class. Now it will take place as part of the hunt for nameplates in the gate. Han, looking at the protagonist, whispered to him that the gate is stable, but it is well guarded. He replied that this is probably for the peace of mind of people. Or perhaps this is a precautionary measure from experiments and investigations. He looked to the side and thought, moreover, there are fewer people here than he thought. Are they being so brazen because they think he doesn't notice, or is this the general level of the cadets? It doesn't matter. Then he asked, "Everyone is ready?" Inha confidently answered, "Of course," and he said, "Well, then forward." He walked forward and the rest passed after him and shouted, "Yes." At that moment, Sola, taking a package of sweets, told her brother that there were many treats in his office. He, sitting at his desk, sighed and replied that it was for guests, she shouldn't eat it all. She put the treat in her mouth and agreed with him. He hadn't heard from them yet? He replied that it hadn't been that long since the instructor had announced that all the second years had come inside. She looked at the treat in her hand and said that just the thought of the bastard and the little ones climbing through the trash heaps made her excited. Mom said she would reward them if they did well, right? He had to decide in advance to ask her. Jaehack, continuing to press the keys on the keyboard, wondered if everything would go smoothly. He was sure that everything would go according to plan, but he remembered his older brother's words about the younger one not being his rival, and thought that at that moment he had laughed it off, but something was still bothering him. Then a call came on his phone, and Sola, sitting up on the couch, asked, "What? Are they done yet?" He frowned at the screen of his phone, and she suddenly stood up from the couch and grabbed the phone from him, shouting, "What's going on?" She looked at the screen with trembling hands and said, 21 people expelled, 15 people out, the entire 5th grade of the first year survived. She squeezed the phone in her hand so hard that it cracked and shouted that this was ridiculous. He means that they couldn't knock out one bastard? Jaehack put his hand to his head and thought, they lost, a total fiasco, lost to the little brother, Lee Cheol. Meanwhile, several cadets ran forward on the stone road. One of them shouted, damn it," his comrade shouted, "He's just a bastard. Only in the 5th grade." He replied that he should shut up and run. If they hide in the cave, that idiot won't be able to find them. After a while, they hid behind the entrance of the cave, and the cadet asked, did they lose him? But the next second, a sword was stuck in the ground in front of them, and they cried out in surprise. Cheol attacked the cadets, said that it was true. He twisted their arms and introduced himself, and soon noticed that they were well hidden. It was difficult to find them. He looked at the trembling cadet, who, sitting on the ground, tried to crawl away from him and shouted at him not to come. Does he think that since he is the direct heir, he can do whatever he wants? Why is he chasing them? He grabbed his clothes and said that if anyone heard this, they would think that he attacked first. If they point a knife at direct descendants, they should pay for it, right? And then he swung his sword and attacked the guy. After a while, Inha ran up to the protagonist and announced that this part was over. He replied that in that case, they would set off immediately. They had not yet dealt with everyone who might have targeted them. He agreed with him and stated that he would immediately join Han. He replied that he would go alone as planned. He must definitely familiarize himself with the names on his list and be sure to continue to collect personal signs. He agreed with him. After that, he pushed off the ground and ran forward. MC stretched his muscles and thought, the most important thing in this exam is the number of nameplates collected. Taking them from the cadets is ineffective, so he formulated one hypothesis. Will he be able to find the nameplates with the demon eyes? And soon he released energy that led to the right place, and he thought that he found it. He climbed up the rock and took out the nameplate, saying that this is excellent. Then he jumped down and added, this is a good opportunity to establish some control. After a while, he looked at his full bag and said, in surprise, that he didn't know he had packed so much. That's why the bag felt heavy. The main thing is that he can't train his eyes anymore. He looked down from the cliff and thought, since the exam is almost over, the fights have been going on since dawn. And he actually feels that if he continues to avoid her, she will start to irritate him. At that moment, Sohin landed next to him and said, did she finally find him? He looked at her and said that he knew she was chasing him. She asked, then why didn't he stop? He shrugged and asked, what did he do now? She tied her hair in a ponytail and told him to stop talking. They should fight. She grabbed her sword and smirked, saying that they should find out who is better here and now. If she does, he will call her big sister. He asked, what if he wins? She replied that in that case, she would call him big brother. He shuddered at this and covered his face with his hands, saying that if this was a psychological attack, it had worked. She indignantly clenched her fist and shouted at him to shut up. He's talking too much. After that, she charged and shouted, this is the decisive moment, Cheol. After successfully completing the promotion exam, the evaluation system became even stricter, and this semester's exam, in which 2 direct heirs participated, became a hot topic of discussion. One of the cadets said, of course, the 8th young mistress will be the first, right? His comrade replied that even the second-year students participated. He thinks the first year can do it? Oh, is he talking about those guys? His comrade leaned towards his ear and whispered that it was so. A few moments later, the teacher announced, the youngest bastard and the 5th-year student. He congratulates him. Young Master Cheol, he is the best. He soon handed him the result. Cheol, promoted, overall high level. The protagonist accepted his result and, closing his eyes, thanked him. Honestly, he didn't think that he would be given such a high rank. He thinks that they couldn't show too openly who they liked more. Maybe if Seohyun had done better, but he took all of her nameplates. Then the instructor noticed that he was calm. Being among the best in the cadet corps is a great achievement. MC put his result on his shoulder and replied that he was sure that the nanny would like it. He was grateful to him for his kind words. The instructor thanked him again, and after that, the protagonist went down to the others, and they began to congratulate him. After that, the teacher announced that the next would be Inha. He should come. He approached him, and he, passing the results to him, congratulated him on an increase. Inha is increased, 13th place in the ranking. With trembling hands, he held his result and thanked him. The main character ordered him not to be arrogant, otherwise he will not be able to rise above. He sighed and replied that everything was true, young master. Then the instructor announced, then the cadet Kimba Song, they congratulate him on an increase. He looked at his results and thanked the instructor. Bo Song is increased, 24th place in the ranking. The instructor continued, the cadet Han, he worked hard to get a promotion in his first year of study. He is also congratulated. Han, promoted, 34th place in the ranking. He thought that this was an ambiguous ranking. To be honest, it was disappointing. No, this was just the beginning. Because he would become as strong as the young master, he should try even harder. Because he had decided to change himself so as not to be a burden to him anymore or lead a dishonest life, now he wouldn't lose. Soon, MC closed his eyes and thought, is this really all over with them? But he wasn't worried anymore. Then he turned to the others and said that everyone had worked hard, everyone had been promoted. He planned to do personal training with those who hadn't been promoted, of course, but the second year would be harder. There would be a lot of guys who would want to tear them apart. He hoped that they could handle it. They confidently agreed with him, and he hit his chest and added that they had to fight. They would overcome everything. After a while, Seohyun desperately said that she wouldn't admit it. Protagonist, sighing, asked what she wouldn't admit this time. She shouted indignantly, if only there hadn't been a promotion exam, she would have been the top student. He was just an impudent cheater. It wasn't enough for him to defeat her. Why did he even take her tablets? Does he know how hard it was for her to collect those tablets again because of him? If only she had the ivory sword with her. Cheol thought that he could defeat her without much trouble, but it took more than an hour. She was stronger than he imagined. She hasn't unlocked her sword's energy yet or learned how to use her abilities. If his sister could do all that, he wouldn't have a chance. After that, she thoughtfully put her fist to her chin and said, but a promise is a promise. He wondered what she was saying all of a sudden. She explained that she was talking about his name. They had an argument from that moment on. But MC didn't let her finish, covering her mouth with his hand and ominously said that if she said anything else, he would sew her mouth shut without anesthesia. They had to go, otherwise they would be late. She agreed with him, and soon they came to the doors. Then the protagonist opened it, and they bowed and greeted their father. Taishin said that they could pass. They took their seats and held mugs with a hot drink in their hands. The head of the family put the mug on a saucer and said that he heard. They had finished the first course of cadet training. What did each of them see and feel? Seohyun looked at the protagonist, and he took a sip of his drink, wondering why she was looking at him like that. She replied that she saw the true face of their family. Cheol choked on his drink at these words, and the head of the family asked what she meant by true face. She replied that she knew that the entire system was based on competition. However, she had seen things happen that she simply could not tolerate. She liked things to be fair. Clenching her fist, she added that even if it took months, she wanted to achieve everything on her own. Taishin remarked that fairness was not bad. He thought that the Holy Sword had chosen her for a reason. She used to be more whiny and shy, but the reason for this change must be him. After that, he asked what he, the youngest, felt. He looked at him, and soon answered, what he felt was shame. The Cadet Corps is the foundation of the martial arts clan. The current Cadet Corps is not functioning properly. The clan leader clarified, wrong. He continued, the cadets did not fight, they could be weak or lose. But those who stop fighting are not fit for the clan, and he has seen too many of them. The problem lies in the ability of the teachers or their teaching methods. The clan leader closed his eyes and answered, how self-confident. Protagonist thought in surprise, did he just laugh? Then he said, admirably, each of them formed their own way of thinking as a cadet. But they must always be on their guard. Expanding the horizon of their own views is not easy. MC thought that he never thought that their father would give them advice himself. After that, they thanked him for this, and he said that he heard about their work as a cadet this year. The first year exam may have been different in level and tasks from the clan officer exam, but the content was the same. They understood that this was a test he gave them, and they faithfully carried out their duties. He called them to reward them. The protagonist thought in surprise. Is this their father, who is always strict in matters of rewards and punishments? Something happened. At this moment, Sohyun raised her hand and said that in that case, she wanted to have dragon-scale armor. The father agreed and said that he would inform the armory so that she could pick it up tomorrow. She thanked him, and Taishan asked what he, the son, wanted. He replied that he wanted to be allowed to climb the mountain of heavenly power. Taishan widened his eyes in surprise, and his sister turned around in confusion. After a while, the protagonist listed and collected items, an encyclopedia of herbs, an iron cauldron, even medical tools. Well, it seems that he packed everything he would need. The mountain of heavenly power is a sacred mountain. Many things that can help make powerful elixirs grow there. On the red and blue island, he could only make weak medicine, but now, he thought that it really allowed him to go to the mountain of heavenly power. Thanks to this, he would be able to pass the warrior's test earlier. The warrior's test is the last test for the children of the Lee clan, after which they are recognized as warriors. And the place they must visit before passing the test is the mountain of heavenly power. Soon, the protagonist looked away and thought, moreover, this mountain was a place he simply had to visit one day. He looked at the sword that was leaning against the wall. Gawa entered the room and apologized, saying that a message had arrived. He was surprised. A message? What kind? She answered, the seventh master invited him. After a while, Jae-hak said that they had not seen each other for a long time. Is this the first time after Chuseok this year? He was holding a tray with a teapot and cups in his hands. After that, he put it on the table, and MC, smiling, confirmed it, noticing that he remembered. He sat down opposite him and replied that he was not so stupid as to forget such things. The protagonist thought, as expected, he was not that easy. A normal conversation between two brothers over a cup of tea was even a natural choice of place. It was easier to deal with open hostility than unpredictable kindness. Soon, Jae-hak extended his hand to him and told him to try it. His only hobby was tea, so it would be great. MC took the mug in his hand and thanked him with a smile. Does he always treat guests to tea? He smiled back and replied that it depends on who his guest is. The tea in their cups is from a foreign plantation he visited 2 years ago. Cheol noticed that even after a few sips, he was in no hurry to get to the main point. He knew very well how to keep the situation under control. As expected, this is not just some pathetic brat with little talent for martial arts. Enough probing. Then Jae-hak put the cup on the saucer and said that the reason he called him was because of what happened in the exam. Does he know that this incident was planned by him and Sixth? He replied that he knew. Seventh said that in that case, their conversation would be quick. This incident was not his intention. The protagonist thought, this is how things turned out. Jae-hak is more known as a politician, administrator, and business person than as a military man. He knows how to build relationships without causing hostility. People call him Golden Sword. He thinks that means that he does not want to be his enemy. And after that, Seventh added that it is definitely his fault too. If he wants, he will apologize. MC said that he does not have to. What happened? Similar things will happen in future competitions. He does not mean to say that he had no choice because of Sola's desire? Jae-hak asked, does he consider him an enemy? He replied that he couldn't think of someone touching his people and openly plotting against him as anything other than enemies. Jae-hak wondered what he should do. Should he just crush him now to avoid trouble later? He then sighed and asked what he wanted him to do. The protagonist replied that he should show a little sincerity. He wasn't the only one who suffered this time. He thought, what an impudent idiot, not accepting an apology but demanding compensation, but he liked it. After that, he extended his hand and said, okay, he will send a decent amount of elixir to the 5th grade students, and he will also give him a decent reward. The protagonist shook his hand and said since his brother had made many concessions, he would not bring this up again. He replied that he thought he would be the brother he would understand the most. The MC said he wasn't sure about that. Soon he stood up from his seat and said that it was time for him to go. Jae-hak folded his arms and said, oh, a word of advice. He should be careful with the 6th. Unlike him, she doesn't like him very much. He replied that it doesn't matter, he won't be in the house for the next year. After a while, Hwayeon hit her daughter, and Sola, falling to the floor, asked in surprise, mother? She replied that she shouldn't call her mother, she didn't raise her to be such a loser. Her daughter grabbed her clothes and shouted that she could explain everything. She didn't use the mission as an excuse to run away. But her mother told her to shut up. What she did was run away. Something that the descendants of the Lee clan should never do. If she were her real child, she wouldn't tolerate this. Sola, digging her nails into the floor and shaking her whole body, said, can't she take responsibility for this now? She put her hand on her chest and shouted, this idiot. Can she crush him right now? Hwayeon replied, she really doesn't understand. If it were possible, she wouldn't have pressed her so hard. She was surprised. What? And she replied, this bastard is going to the mountain of heavenly power for a year. Maybe she could at least fix something, but she blew it. With this incident, she set up all her direct descendants. If she shows her such a pathetic sight again, then she won't get off with a simple blow. Then she left the room. Jahak was standing behind the wall all this time, and after that, he looked into the room and saw his sister, her bloody fingers scraping the floor and shouting, damn idiot, she will definitely kill him. Soon he hid behind the wall again and thought that her mother was very cruel. After this, Sola would be obsessed with the idea of making amends for her guilt. Well, will she and Cheol show who is more valuable? He is looking forward to the future. A year later, the day that guy will return. Meanwhile, the protagonist sat down in the back seat of the car and looked ahead, wondering why? Choi sat opposite him and said that they were lucky that their paths crossed by chance. He wondered, Choi's butler is here? The butler said that it is only for a few short days. He will be with him, young master. Please, he must not feel pressured. He wondered, what? And he replied that it was time to tidy up the ancestral graves before the Lunar New Year. And he also needed to convey something to the guardian of the Heavenly Power Mountain. He would just accompany him, as the head of the family ordered. Cheol smiled and said, good, he was glad that he was not going alone. He thought, what a coincidence. This couldn't be true. Although his appearance and energy were similar to that of an ordinary person, he was by no means an ordinary person. One of the main leaders of the clan, who held a more important position than most elders. He couldn't imagine how great the distance was between the butler and him. Choi then continued. Come to think of it, he heard that he was staying at the Lee Clan mountain before going to the Heavenly Power Mountain. Could he ask why him? He scratched his head awkwardly and smiled as he replied that he was planning to visit the family grave, since this was his first step outside the clan. He felt it was his duty to pay his respects to the ancestors. He thought that this was actually a plausible excuse. He also wanted to show that the illegitimate child had come a long way to pay his respects. He replied, as expected, he is very smart, young master. Many elders would approve of his decision. MC thanked him for these words and thought that he seemed to have read his mind. After that, the butler asked if he could ask something. The protagonist confirmed this. Soon he asked if he liked hiking in the mountains. He replied that he did not. He had never tried to climb a mountain. He laughed and replied, I see, but he enjoys it. He once climbed a very steep mountain. There was no road, so he had to make his own way. If it were him, how would he go up such a mountain? He replied that he would climb silently, looking only up, just aiming for the top, without thinking about anything else. Choi smiled and said that he would have actually climbed up quickly, but that wasn't how it worked. Sometimes he had to look back or to the sides to assess the terrain and make sure he was going straight. If he only looked forward, he would easily lose his way and would have to take a big detour. And the higher the mountain, the more often he had to look back. The protagonist wondered, was he talking about martial arts? He had been too busy after returning before he could digest his newfound abilities. But he didn't think it would be a problem. If this continued, even after time had passed, he would still be looking for something new. After that, he nodded his head and thanked him for his kind words. Choi held his hand out in front of him and told him to just take it as an old man's grumbling. He looked out the window and noticed that they had arrived. The car stopped and he said, this is the Lee Clan mountain. After that, they got out of the car, and Cheol, turning to the butler, said that he heard that only those with the blood of the Lee family or those who have received permission can enter the mountain gate. Will he be able to enter? He replied that he received permission from the previous head of the family. He needs to tidy up his grave. Where does he plan to go? The protagonist replied that he would first like to visit the place where the ancestral tablet of the clan founder is kept. He then walked forward and felt a strange feeling. Did he really pass through the barrier of the ancestral mountain? He clenched his fist and thought that it felt like he had entered another world. After that, the butler bowed and said that he would go. He hoped that he would do what he wanted. Cheol thanked him and soon walked forward. He thought about it, and here is the grave of the first head of the family. He opened the doors of the room and greeted the founder of the Lee Martial Arts Clan. From now on, even if he commits a rude act by digging a hole in his ancestor's grave, please forgive him, since he is doing everything in accordance with the arrangements prepared by him. With that, he took out the sword from its sheath and then placed it on the shelf. He poured the liquid into the bowl and thought, the black twilight is a sword, but that is not its only function. Before he returned, his elder brother revealed a family secret. There are 9 seals in the black twilight. He only knows about 4, the first of which is the proof that he is the owner of the sword. The second proves that he belongs to the Lee clan. The third is that he has passed the tests created by the clan founder, that is, the naming ceremony. So far, he has broken a total of 3 seals. What will be the clue for the next one? He saw the light accumulating in the mirror and thought, heavenly power. This is a mountain of heavenly power, he remembers. Then he can do it. The mountain of heavenly power is where the clan's ancestor learned about the energy of heavenly power and chose it as a place to train his successors. After a while, the protagonist noticed that the magic here was very strong. He had read about it. At that moment, the butler came up to him and asked, "This is an incredible mountain, right?" MC smiled and said that it was completely different from the clan mountain or the red and blue island. He said that he hoped that he would be satisfied with the results. At that moment, Dokebi came up to them and said, "It's so noisy here again. It's enough." They attacked again like a pack of stray dogs. Cheol wondered in surprise. When did he manage to do it? He didn't feel anything. Several warriors stepped forward and shouted, "Young master, Butler Choi, they must retreat. He is strong." He, angry, pointed his finger at them and said, "Oh, these fools are so desperate to die. While he is kind, he should put away his knife." After that, the warrior shouted, "Everyone line up." But before he could finish speaking, the mountain guardian grabbed him by the head and shoved his face into the ground. After that, he said, "But really, these black-haired guys stop listening the moment they are given iron in their hands." The protagonist watched what was happening in bewilderment, and after a while, the mountain guardian took a sip of drink from the bottle in his hand and shouted, "How dare he attack? He has no chance, he must submit." "Hey, immoral fool," he asked to warn him a month before arriving. "If he came without a single bottle of alcohol, he really is a corpse." The butler, smiling, apologized for this, but he was excessive. He was indignant, excessive. How long has he become so insolent? MC anxiously called the butler, and he, thoughtfully putting his hand to his chin, said that he was a little late with the introduction. This man is the mountain guardian who guards the mountain of heavenly power. He lifted his glasses and asked in surprise, "Is this him? The guy Taishan brought from the street?" Choi agreed and said that he was the 9th son, Prince Cheol, and he was climbing the mountain. The man looked at him with an interested look and asked, did he notice how he was moving? Cheol was surprised by this question and thought that he never thought he would understand it. He agreed, and then he said that his aura was similar to Taishan's. Although his smell was a little strange, suddenly he got a headache and the color of one of his eyes changed a little. The guardian of the mountain noticed this and asked, "It seems that his eyes are strange too, right?" He noticed a thread of energy and it caught his attention. After some time in the building, the man laughed with a very satisfied look and said that the alcohol of Westerners is really interesting. Although this woody aroma is unusual for him, the aftertaste is good. Choi said with a small smile that he was glad that he liked it. The protagonist thought with a slightly confused look that although he does not understand much about alcohol, he knows that it is not cheap. When he drank all the alcohol, he put the empty bottle on the table and said that he would listen to them now. He must be very well liked by everyone, since he was sent here to train. He said that he asked for it himself. The mountain guardian looked away with a small smile and said that he really is the one in whom all kinds of luck and fate are intertwined. MC thought that the phenomenon that the demonic eyes showed him a while ago and the personality of the mountain man that he heard about before returning, he is Dokebi. Dokebi can predict fate with their eyes that have stars in them. The guardian said that it turns out that he was given a year. What will he do during this time? He looked away and thought that whatever he says will reach his father too. After he said his plans, Dokebi said with a little surprise that he saw a lot of strange people. When he told him where the training grounds were, he immediately headed there. They, as soon as they finished treating the wounds he left them, should leave together. Choi said that he was grateful to him for letting him use his special healing water. Dokebi threw another empty bottle of alcohol behind him and asked what brought them here. He didn't think they came just to bring him alcohol. He didn't like idle talk, so he should get straight to the point. Choi said that the leader was wondering if he had seen any heavenly signs. He said that he had indeed seen some signs, but he couldn't say much. He asked with a calm expression, surely Dokebi, who had been offered a drink, wouldn't refuse the request. He became very angry about this, slammed his fist on the table and said loudly that this was their apology. He said that he had brought more than 10 bottles of alcohol. He started drinking alcohol from the new bottle and said loudly that he knew it. When he finished, he said with a serious expression that there was still a long way to go. The gates of heaven have long been opened and humanity has reached its peak, so troubled times are coming. He should tell him not to worry and to follow the natural course of things. Choi took the glass of alcohol with a calm expression, agreed, and said that he would pass this on to the master. Dokebi said loudly with a displeased expression that if only he had one serum back then, he wouldn't have to do such unpleasant things. He seems to like this guy very much. Isn't he worried? He said with a calm expression that he only serves the Lee clan's bloodline. Dokebi asked if he heard about him wanting to go there. He's still just a piece of flesh. Choi said that he was asking you to look after him for his sake. He's sure they'll have a lot of fun. At the same time, Cheol walked to the training ground and said that it was amazing to see this again. The hollow in the tree is connected to the training ground. Yesterday, the entrance to the mountain god's residence was also a cave. Is this Dokebi's magic? He thought that if he thought about it, he was still missing a lot. From now on, he only had 1 year. Magic, weapons and techniques, demonic eyes, a sixth sense, and even dark energy. He had to make sure he had mastered all of them at an excellent level. He took out his dagger and said that his goal was to do everything 1,000 times, and if he couldn't get used to something, he would try again and again until he won. After some time, Dokebi lay on the floor and said that this guy was very stubborn. It was the first time he had seen something like this. He watched him through the portal and thought that he trained to the point of exhaustion, and then recovered with the help of healing water. This was reminiscent of self-flagellation. There was little benefit to the body from this. He snapped his fingers and thought that it was no wonder his fate looked like this. He was destined to either die young or become a victim of an accident. However, now he does not change his predetermined fate and even challenges his innate energy. A being without a fate, has he ever seen anyone like him? He remembered someone and said that even the heavens were fed up with this family. 3 months later, Dokebi called Choi a freak in a dissatisfied voice and said that he would be funny to watch. He was already tired of him, so he stopped watching. The guy did nothing but basic training all day long. He didn't even say anything to him. He only came to ask permission to collect herbs. Although, maybe he's not dead. He was very surprised when he heard some kind of scream, which made him immediately stand up and think that it was the cry of the spirit monster Baki. What came into the mountains? He snapped his fingers and thought that this couldn't have happened because a barrier was set up. Did those people from the main house who delivered food and drinks scare them? He was very surprised when he saw the monster and asked loudly what that freak did to them. Was he trying to eat that monster? He opened the door and said loudly that he should stop. He ran very quickly to the protagonist and asked loudly what the hell he had done here? He looked at him and said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. By the way, could he please step aside for a minute? Dokebi got very angry because of this and asked loudly, how dare he attack Spirit right in front of him? He had never seen such impudent people in his life. He felt embarrassed because of this and asked what the hell he was talking about. He said loudly that the spirit he was chasing, trying to kill. That spirit is a monster named Baki. He was confused because MC asked why he needed to kill Spirit. He looked at him and noticed that he had a basket and a hoe. He was about to say something about that monster with a displeased expression on his face, but Dokebi loudly asked him to wait. He asked loudly, why on earth was he chasing Baki? He said with a displeased expression that this freak stole his elixir. Immediately after that, he ran past him and said loudly that he would explain everything later. He called out to him loudly and asked how he was going to find a spirit that lives not only in the physical world. He stared at him and thought, this guy is running there right now, right? Even with a very highly developed sense, it would not be easy to do. Although the aura covers his legs, there is no visible damage on the ground. Was he that fast right away? It had been no more than 3 months since he last saw him. What even happened during this time? After a while, he said that it turns out that while he was looking for the last ingredient for the elixir, he was chasing Baki, who ran away after stealing the elixir. Well, he is very sorry. Cheol said with a very displeased expression that the ginseng, which is at least 40, if not 50 years old, polygon perennial root, white phosphorus herb, dragon scale flower, truffle mushroom, cordyceps grown on the corpse of a magic beetle. All of these ingredients were hard to come by. He had been making this medicine for 100 nights and barely slept, but everything was gone. Dokebi looked at him with a very worried expression and tried to think of something to say to calm him down. He said with a sad expression that his plan for which he came here had failed. This elixir was one of his key goals. He got angry because of this and said loudly that he had given him permission to do whatever he wanted. Would one theft ruin the whole thing for him? The protagonist had an idea and he said that he had given permission, but in the end, he got it on his lands. It was his fault that he had not handled it properly. He said loudly with a displeased expression that he should stop. He would make up for it. He promises to do everything. Because of this, a sly smile appeared on his face and he asked, right now he will do everything, right? He would like him to do 2 things. After some time, MC returned to the training ground and the Spider Queen was standing in front of him. He channeled energy into his sword and thought that he should not forget that the power of aura skills used in succession should be the same as the first skill. He used the Chi Strike technique, the Lord of Hell. His energy bound the body of this monster, and it began to scream loudly in anger. Immediately after that, he channeled another energy into the sword and used the chi strike technique, the wind-cutting force. He released a powerful wave of energy, cut off the monster's arm, and thought, wasn't that strong enough to finish it off? The monster very quickly began to strike with its paws. However, in front of his face, the monster disappeared and turned into a talisman. Dokebi picked up the talisman from the floor and said that he had become a nanny now. Why did he even agree to this? He called him and asked if he wanted to rest for a while. Cheol wiped the sweat from his face, said that he was asking him to continue right away. Dokebi said that he should concentrate and try to remember the object he needed. Once he concentrated, he threw the talisman into the air and an illusion of a swordsman appeared in the hall. They started fighting each other, and Dokebi thought that his magic power was already running out. He got angry about what happened and wondered how he even knew about illusion training. He calmed down and thought that he should get rid of it. The second request is to collect magic herbs, so that shouldn't be difficult. In the past 3 months, he has clearly become stronger, faster, and has improved his skills. It seems more accurate to say that he has become more robust rather than strong. Perhaps he will have to talk about this weapon someday. After some time, the protagonist was relaxing in a hot spring and said that he felt alive. He wouldn't have been able to bear it if it weren't for the healing water. It would be nice if this existed somewhere other than the mountain. He was very surprised when he felt someone's presence and wondered who it was. He didn't even feel it until it came so close. Dokebi said that judging by his tired appearance, it seems like he is still human. He looked at him and asked what brought him here. He asked, he had a long day too, so why not rest? It seems like he has been here for a long time, but is he resting enough? He said, it seems like he sometimes even spends too much time on this. Dokebi said that he means, besides him coming here after training. He sat down next to him, put a plate of boiled eggs on the water, and asked, he has lived quite a long life, right? However, this is the first time he has seen someone train so mindlessly. MC felt a little awkward and said that he felt like his body has recovered, so he should probably go. Dokebi smashed the egg on the rock with a strong blow and said that he should wait. He should sit back down because they had something to discuss. What was that thing he was waving around called? He looked at his ring and asked if he wanted to talk about it. He agreed and asked where he got it. He promises that the conversation will remain only between them. He is not sure, but it may be related to the origin. Cheol said that the weapon was called the Limitless. He took it from the family warehouse. Dokebi started swirling steam above his head with a wave of his hand and said that he didn't know how much he knew about it, but he had seen something like it a long time ago. There was a shaman back then who could communicate with spirits and read the stars and always carried something with him. For example, a stone that could change shape freely. The shaman could do all kinds of magic using just that. He didn't pay anything for it, so he became the best shaman of his time. However, one day the stone swallowed him up. At first, the shaman lost his sense of humor, and then he became wild like a monster. It all happened very suddenly, in less than a year. It wasn't easy, but some craftsmen sealed it. The protagonist asked what happened to the stone. He said it was destroyed. A huge number of magicians combined their powers for this. He thought it was similar to the story he read in the Hall of Sacred Texts. He asked, is the place where the shaman was sealed called the Mountain of 1,000 Ghosts? Dokebi said that it was not. It was sealed on the island in the eastern part. He thought that means he read about something else. The stone and the boundless, they are different objects, but interconnected. He said that he would like to return to the story. Then he felt an unpleasant smell coming from the stone. This is approximately how it smells now. A strange smell, neither human, nor monstrous, nor spiritual. The boundless, it is a foreign substance of an unidentified nature. Perhaps there's a better weapon, so why not give up on it? He smiled and thought that his tone sounds like a soft offer, but he feels a threat and his heart is contracting. He said with a serious expression that when he received the demon eyes, his father recommended him to seal it. He said exactly this: if he is given power, he will subdue it and use it. Dokebi asked this cocky guy with a smile, did he say that to Taishin? However, does he think it is the same as his demon eyes? MC with a calm expression said that to him, they are not that different. He said that then he has no other choice. He took out a large club and with a serious expression said that he will have to take it by force. He swung his weapon and stopped it in front of his head while he looked at it with a calm expression. He said that he still has a chance to give it to him as long as he asks normally. It has been a long time since he last used his weapon, so he is not sure if he can control the power. Cheol with a small smile said that he can't do that, since if he does that, he will be breaking his oath. Dokebi lowered his weapon and asked, he knows everything, right? He agreed and said that in order to protect the mountain and help the disciples, this is the oath he made to the founder of the lineage. He was just testing his willpower, right? He said that since he knew about it, he should have just said. He asked, he really didn't intend to take it away, did he? Dokebi said that he thought his place was where he could earn money with his mind and tongue. He said with a wide smile that he was grateful to him for this compliment. He became even more angry because of this and said loudly that it was not a compliment. The protagonist asked why he didn't try to take it by force. He could have done it under the pretext of helping. He said that he didn't feel the strange energy that he felt from the shaman. It didn't look like a monster devouring its owners. He looked at the ring on his finger and said that he was grateful to him for telling about it. He called him and asked, he just threatened a disciple with a weapon, right? When it comes to calculations, he is very meticulous. He knows that, right? The guardian of the mountain loudly told this scoundrel that he would have something even from a Death Reaper. Sometime later, at the temporary residence on the mountain of heavenly power, MC looked at the weapon made of dark energy and said that he never thought that it would take 3 months to read the sword's memories. He thought that before leaving for the mountain of heavenly power, he received 2 swords from his 7th brother, Jahak. The Master Sword Judo and the Master Blade Eppenberg. He said that Eppenberg has an innate yin energy that allows it to exude cold. Since this one did not have many accumulated memories, he was able to deal with it back in the main house. He wondered, should he test Judo's capabilities then? He saw the second memory of the Limitless One before the quarterly evaluation of the cadets and gained new abilities. The ability to use the power of a copied weapon. He released a thread of energy and pulled the sword that was standing by the wall. He caught it and thought that Judo's ability was the ability to move objects. He thought that simply copying the shape did not result in the ability manifesting. Perhaps he can only use the abilities of the weapons that he learned with dark energy. Since he broke the seal on the family mountain, he should check the memories of the Black Twilight. He entered the memories and thought that before he broke the seal on the mountain, he had only seen up to this point. Now the most important thing begins. Hyul said that he plans to seal this sword. He can't watch this power affect his children. The girl standing next to him asked if it was easy to seal the sword, but is he sure about it? Then no one will be chosen easily again. He said that it doesn't matter if it's not suitable in the first place, so it's better not to use it. She understood him, released her energy, and began to seal the sword. He finished it and said that the sealing was complete. She told him the contents of the seal, and Cheol thought that he still couldn't hear anything about the seal that hadn't been removed. The girl said that when the 3rd seal was removed, his abilities would be revealed. He's okay with it, right? He said it wouldn't make much of a difference, so it doesn't matter. However, he feels like he'll have to check. He watched this from the side and wondered if there was mana circulating in the Black Twilight. It was no different in complexity from a human. He saw Hyul swing his sword and thought that the mana was not only weakening, it was also dissipating. He looked at the blade of the sword and said that he needed to strengthen the seals a little. The protagonist felt a headache and came back to reality from this memory. He asked with a small smile, the ability to dissipate mana. Who knew such a weapon existed? After a while, he returned to the training hall and ran with a very serious expression with his sword in his hand. He looked at the Spider Queen, used a chi strike, lightning, and killed his opponent with 1 blow. Dokebi stood next to him and asked, was he still able to deal with her? He knows that this is his first victory after a series of losses, right? It took him 7 months to do this? MC asked with a happy smile. Now he definitely knows that he can beat him, right? He agreed with a dissatisfied expression, praised him and asked what he was going to create now. He put the sword back in the ring and said that it seemed like it was time to stop training. The Mountain Guardian was very happy about this and said that it was a good idea since he was just about to rest. He said with a serious expression that he was thinking about it. It was time to accept the challenge. The test created by the spirit of the clan founder, the Bloodless Dream. He thought that this was a testing space created specifically for the Lee Clan. It is a fantastic space where all kinds of sorcery, the power of the spiritual mountain of heavenly power, and dokebi magic are combined. This is where those who can pass the test are selected. This is another oath that the Mountain Guardian made. He asked, is he really going to try? Cheol agreed with a serious expression and said that it was because he worked for it. Dokebi said that he did not have the necessary skills to pass the test right now. He extended his hand to him and said with a smile that, however, he thought he was at the level where he could try. He allowed him to pass the test of bloodless sleep. He was happy to hear this, shook his hand, and thanked him for it. After some time, they came to a cave, and Dokebi said that this was the entrance to the bloodless sleep. The protagonist looked at him and asked if this was the cave that led to his home. He walked up to the rock, started using magic, and said that this was indeed the case now. Because of this, instead of a cave, a huge door appeared in front of them. He turned to him with a smile and said that once he entered, he would not be able to leave until the test was over. He should open it and go inside. He went to the door and said that he would be back soon. Dokebi said with a smile that he could take his time and leave whenever he could. He wished him luck, and MC opened the door and saw a bright light and thought that for some he was a god of war, for others a dragon hunter, or a fictional character created as part of a legend, the one who created a clan that is considered the greatest in the world. He was transported to a field where he saw the founder of the clan, Lee Cheol, and said that a distant descendant was greeting the founder. He took out his sword and thought that it was an incredible feeling of presence, as if he was actually alive. In the history of their clan, only once every few generations did someone try to win in a bloodless sleep. The conditions for victory are simple. You need to defeat the founder at the age of 15. He closed his eyes and thought that he should start with reconnaissance. Unexpectedly, the founder of the clan ran up to him very quickly and stabbed his sword into his body. Immediately after that, Cheol came to his senses in the same field. He thought with a surprised expression on his face, "What just happened? Was he hit with a sword?" It's not like he let his guard down. He's been killed by a throat stab before inside the simulation, but at least he was able to notice the movement back then. However, he can't say anything now other than the fact that he's been stabbed in the torso. He needs to calm down and look around. It doesn't look like he used any secret arts or techniques. He didn't even use his aura-based body enhancement skills. Even with his sixth sense, he didn't notice it when his eyes were closed. Could it be a strike that was targeting his weak spot? However, is that possible? To pull that off, he'd have to count all of his movements. He picked up the dagger that was lying on the ground next to him and said, "Which means he's that strong." He stood up and looked at Helion, who was emitting a powerful aura. The protagonist chuckled and said with a smile that he didn't know if he could defeat him. At the same time, Choi said that he received a call from Heavenly Power Mountain. Taishin said with a calm expression that it seemed like he had entered the gate. He agreed and said that it had already been 10 months. He said that, however, he shouldn't have had that level of skill. That kid had never lost. Turtle Mountain, the double crown of the Blood Tiger squad. If we talk about his victories and defeats, he didn't win every time, but he had never lost completely. In short, that means he had never hit a wall. Does he know why the survival rate in Bloodless Dreams is less than half? It's because people give up in front of the wall called Hyeon. A kid who has never felt a hardship before meets an obstacle. What will happen when he runs into a real wall? After a while, MC lay on the ground and asked if he had died from one blow again. He remembered what happened earlier and thought that he had deceived his senses. The frontal attack was followed by an attack from the side, an attack that perfectly entered his blind spot. Does that mean he has already figured out all of his fighting patterns? It's been a long time since he felt like this. Frustration, helplessness, the fear that he can never win, he will not give up and break. No one in this world knows this feeling better than him. Those who have hit rock bottom can only rise up. He jumped towards Hyeon, swung his sword, and thought that his attempts were not in vain. He understands more and more. Founder's spirit does not have any unknown power. He died over and over again and thought that the source of his strength is his talent for finding the right answers. Each time, he instinctively knows what will be best at that moment. The essence of martial arts, its original and age-old foundation, is to watch the movements of the sword. It will be a horizontal slash from left to right. Next time, he will definitely succeed. After a while, Cheol began to block Hyeon's strikes one after another. He thought that he could gradually compete with the founder on equal terms. He dodged another sword strike and thought with a smile that he had finally used his aura. His own unique fighting style, it was unconventional and free. What he lacked was the ability to handle any weapon. All these techniques, based on an unshakable foundation. Now, he understands that the true purpose of bloodless sleep is to break down the wall that is himself. The founder does not have this. His strengths are ones he did not even know about. He also remembered that Gyeonga had said earlier that his magical talent was incredible. She would guarantee it to him. He thanked his aunt for this, changed his weapon and used a chi force strike, Howling Wind. He struck very hard and was able to break Hyeon's sword and also touch him with this strike. In the evening, Dokebi said that a month had passed since this guy went into bloodless sleep. Before Taishin, he hadn't allowed the test to be done for over 100 years, but who would have thought that in less than half a century, there would be another one? Suddenly, an earthquake started and he asked with a surprised expression what happened in the mountains. He had an idea of what was going on and ran up the mountain very quickly. He ran to the door and said that he had finally passed the test. The protagonist came out of there and said with a smile that he was back. After some time, they were sitting at the hot springs and Dokebi asked how it went. He said with a smile that he never wanted to go through that again. He looked at him with a smile and said that you can't tell from him. Usually, everyone comes back with eyes like dead fish. Some even have personalities that change. He thought that it seemed like everyone was finding their own answers. He asked, so does he know what his father felt like after that? The guardian of the mountain asked with a smile. Is he curious about his father? Does he know what he said as soon as he came out? He thanked him and said that his training was over and he was coming back. MC asked if he was impersonating his father now. He agreed and asked if it wasn't similar. By the way, he did something unimaginable. He went through endless sleep at a very young age. He smiled and thought that this wasn't a test where speed was important. Dokebi asked, so what was he going to do with the remaining month? He said that he was planning on taking a break and systematizing what he had learned. The mountain guardian pointed at him with a smile and said that he thought that he hadn't changed at all, but it seemed that he was wrong. Was he in pain, or was he under the influence of magic? Cheol said with a happy expression that it was time to receive his reward. He hadn't forgotten his threats to him last time, had he? He had a small favor to ask of him. He would like to borrow Dokebi's club from him.